Chapter 1. The Shape of the Future. Chapter Text. Ultra, the unwavering hero, also known as Izuku Midoriya to his friends and family, wiped his brow after lifting a collapsed roof off the crumbled remains of an elementary school. With begrudging approval from Mr. Aizawa, the first-year UA students who were in Tokyo were allowed to take part in the cleanup and rescue operation after the Kamino incident. His Emerald Dragon Quirk, part of the package that came with One for All, allowed him to distribute the weight of the roof so the whole thing didn't splinter into pieces. With access to the interior of the formerly two-story building, his girlfriend, Achiko Uraraka, also known as Uravity the Gravity Hero, moved quickly. At a touch, she removed the mass from the pancaked second floor, using that siphon mass to give herself enough emulated strength to hoist it out of place. "Show off," he teased. She stuck her tongue out to him in retaliation. "Hey, Distortion, are you sure you heard something? This was an elementary school. No one should have been here in the middle of the night." Kyokajiro plugged one of her earphone jacks into the stone of the remaining floor. "Yes, I'm sure. Someone was singing. I've got a heartbeat. 2 of them, but one is faint. Over there." She pointed at a pile of rubble, and the rest of their classmates joined in, clearing the debris quickly and efficiently. "Oh, dude, the basement," Red Riot said, as he threw a block to the side, revealing a set of stairs leading down. "Yo, anyone down there?" "We're down here," a voice called up. "Thank you so much." Moments later, the team had secured the staircase and made sure it was safe to ascend. A balding man in his mid-50s wearing a janitor's uniform climbed the stairs holding a pug in his arms. "I was afraid no one would think to look for me and Taro. We had plenty of supplies, but it was kind of scary with the power out." "How did you find us?" Tenya chopped his arm toward Kyoka. "Our fellow hero student, Distortion, was able to hear your heartbeats. Are either of you injured? Is anyone else missing?" "Ultra Uravity," a stern voice called, and they both turned away from Tenya's somewhat awkward, but improving, attempt at victim counseling. "How are you both feeling?" Mr. Aizawa asked. "You were both injured during the incident, so I don't want either of you pushing it." "We're fine, honest," Achiko said, flexing her arm. "It wasn't even a whole building, just part of one floor." "I got the easy part with the roof," Izuku added with a wink. "Don't overdo it," he said, before raising his voice. "That goes for all of you. Class reps, gather your troops. Mandatory 60-minute lunch break, and it starts when all of you start eating. There are bento boxes at the evacuation HQ. I want each of you to eat at least one of them, preferably 2. He glanced at a small crowd that had gathered to watch the teens lifting a collapsed building. "Compulsion. Get those people out of here." Hitoshi looked at the crowd. "Hey, everyone. I'm Compulsion, hero student at UA, and I'll be your tour guide for this fine August afternoon." That got a few laughs. "Please listen closely and repeat after me. Your name here." The crowd said the first word and a host of names, and Hitoshi grinned, before continuing. "Want to head to the evacuation site in a calm and orderly fashion, and if you could help anyone in the group who might be injured, it would be appreciated." With various levels of speed, the crowd started heading toward the care site, sticking together and pulling anyone who started to wander off back into the group. People with minor injuries leaned on the fellow civilians, and no one complained or made a fuss. "Look at you, silver-tongued devil," Momo said after a few moments. "Full control is hard, but giving people a suggestion while still leaving their free will. That's the ticket. Put them under, and they'll resist every step of the way. Letting them choose while stacking the deck, that's so much easier than brute force," Hitoshi said. "Not that I'd ever do that with my friends. You all think I'm a swell guy, right?" Most of them chorused in a monotone. "We all think you're a swell guy," before breaking into laughter. Nizu and All Might stood to the side watching, before Nizu looked up at the number 1 hero. "I'd never admit my doubts to anyone but you, and perhaps Recovery Girl, but did I do the right thing involving these children? I am aware of my tendency to view people as tools, and they had the skills I needed readily available. The odds of any serious injuries during the raid were highly remote, but it still nearly blew up in my face. All Might glanced down. I am probably the wrong person to ask, Nizu, since I must fight my tendency to do everything alone every step of the way. We're on two opposite ends of the spectrum in that respect, but I believe the correct choice is somewhere in the middle. Had you forced them to take part, young Aizawa would have to take a number to make his displeasure known. As it is, though, they did well and you kept them safe. He glanced at the teens escorting the middle-aged man to the evacuation site, mostly as an excuse so that they could pet his dog. We are merely custodians of the future. Nizu, it belongs to them. They should have their say in deciding the shape of it. The main building of UA was essentially 4 different buildings in one, designed to resemble the letter H from any angle. To avoid confusion, each of the different wings housed one of the different departments: heroics, support, management, and general education. During the attack on UA, the building suffered massive damage to 3 of the 4 wings, with only the general education wing escaping mostly unscathed. Of course, the building had been built to act as a veritable fortress, and even with the damage it took, it still stood strong, just missing several floors. The second and third year students were already working hard at clearing debris under the watchful eyes of their teachers. Most of the students injured in the attack had been transferred to Mizudafu General Hospital, since the school infirmary could never hope to care for them all. Because of the damage to the building, Ainin Kuros chose to set the helicopter down on the lawn near the remains of the heroics wing, and the students rapidly cleared the area to allow her to land. For the return trip, Hound Dog graciously offered to let Power Loader serve as co-pilot, and he spent most of the trip in quiet conversation with Fumikage. He'd breathed a sigh of relief when Izuku Midoriya declared both Bakugo and Tokoyami free of All for One's influence, but then the teen pointed out that most of the League of Villains were free of that influence as well. All for One didn't hold a monopoly on evil, even if he was the largest franchisee. As the helicopter touched down, he put a massive hand on the boy's back. "Are you all right, Fumi?" "I believe so, Rio," the boy said, secretly reveling in the permission to call a teacher by their first name. "I will admit I have never been in a helicopter before. I don't think I like flying." "You don't like flying?" Rio said with a chuckle. "Don't ruin all the stereotypes. If I stop getting belly rubs, I'm blaming you, kid." This earned him a smile, and he was glad to see it. Fumi had every reason to feel depressed, but Rio didn't want the kid to sink into full-blown depression. "Would it help if I started stealing shiny objects and saying nevermore?" Fumi asked in his deep baritone. "It might," Rio said with a nod. "Let me get Bakugo's stretcher out, and then I'll be back for yours." He opened the door and set the unconscious boy's stretcher on the lawn, spotting the big 3 and waving them over. "Would the 3 of you take this boy to the infirmary and keep an eye on him?" The 2 boys gave salutes while the girl nodded, and he turned to get Fumi's stretcher. "Can I walk on my own?" Fumi asked. "I've been in this bed for hours now and I'd really like to shake my tail feathers." Rio glanced at Chio and raised an eyebrow, and the older lady nodded. "Sure thing, Fumi. Just remember you're in a hospital gown. Don't try to fly too fast or everyone will see your toucan." Fumi groaned, but at least the gown he'd gotten at the hospital was the type that didn't naturally leave his backside exposed. As he walked beside Recovery Girl and Hound Dog, he glanced ahead at his 3 seniors pushing Bakugo's stretcher. "Will he be all right?" he asked quietly. He noticed Hound Dog and Recovery Girl exchanging complicated looks and knew he wouldn't get the full story from them. Perhaps he never would. "You know what doctor-patient confidentiality is, Fumi," Rio said. "Both of us are doctors, and that limits what we can tell you about one of our other patients. If you're getting a cream for crow's feet, haha, from Recovery Girl, and she tells someone, you might not want to share other medical conditions with her. And if I'm your therapist, and I hate to break it to you, but I so am, you don't want me blabbing all your deepest, darkest secrets like some little yappy dog. We can tell you that his life isn't in any more danger than anyone else on campus," Recovery Girl said. Fumikage wasn't sure exactly how comforting that was. After lunch, the team and Izuku had firmly vetoed Strike Force Ultra, went back into Kamino under the close supervision of their teachers. Most of the heavy lifting had been completed, and at this point no lives were in danger. They spent the afternoon getting the site cleared for the construction crews who would come later to rebuild the ward. The teachers talked often, making sure to stay just out of earshot, and even Kyoka couldn't figure out what they were saying. I give up. It's all gibberish about someone. Maybe an American named Lauren Aspen or something like that. Tenya groaned. Lorem ipsum? Sounds like it, she said. Forget it, then, Izuku said. They're using a jammer built by Nizu. Lorem ipsum is random text generated to test websites and typesetting. There isn't even a code to break. The whole thing is random. They're probably going to send us back to campus soon. That's right, Aizawa said from behind him. I can't really blame any of you since you were left. And he pitched his voice louder towards Nizu, poorly supervised, but none of you should be here. I'm proud of you for volunteering to help, but I am not happy that any of you are here. Finish up what you're doing, and then we're heading back to Might Tower where you will get a quick shower, change into sweats, and be driven back to school by your teachers. Sir, Izuku said, I could, maybe teleport us there. What? Toru said, rubbing her hands together. Since when could you teleport people, old buddy, old pal? Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Whether you leave through the front gate or a portal, you still need permission to leave campus, Hagakure, and permission is denied. He turned to Izuku. We do not know the range of your quirk. We do not know the limits of your quirk. We do not know if you could materialize inside of something. We do not know if it is even safe to travel through. No teleporting people, including yourself, until we do know. I went through one, and nothing bad happened to me, Izuku said. Yet, Midoriya, Aizawa said, nothing bad happened to you yet, unless you count being grounded, which if it were within my power, you would be until the age of 20. When Dadzawa's attack, next on Kitsune, Itsuka whispered to Tenya, then tried to look innocent at Mr. Aizawa's glare. Izuku started to open his mouth, but Kyoka held up a hand. Wait, does anyone hear that? Mina shook her head. Nothing. This area's been picked clean, Aizawa said. Of people, Hitoshi said. Everybody shut up and give Kyoka a chance. This way, she said, leading them to the remains of one of Kamino's few parks only a dozen meters from where they were. The playground equipment had been demolished, and large chunks of the earth had been ripped away or overturned, leaving huge crevasses. In one of these, they found a busted sewer pipe with a small, filthy kitten crying faintly. It's too tight for any of us to get down there, Itsuka said. The ground is too unstable to risk going in there through the sewers, Tenya said. Even if we could find a safe entrance, perhaps Mr. Aizawa's capture weapon. The kitten ended up hissing at the capture weapon and backing away until it was almost out of sight. Maybe Tsuyu's tongue or Kyoka's earphone jacks? Mina asked. If it was scared of the scarf, it would probably think either one is a snake rib bit, Tsuyu said. Plus, gross. I don't mind touching the kitten, but licking it while it's covered in sewage, no thanks. What about Emerald Dragon? Achiko asked. To fit, I'd have to shape it long and thin, then you've got the same snake problem, Izuku said. I can see it, though. Aizawa sighed. I guess we've got to start somewhere. Do it. Izuku held his hands out flat, and Momo laid a big, fluffy towel over them. Several centimeters above the towel, a disk of green energy appeared in the air. Izuku looked closely, and another disk appeared right beneath the kitten, who fell through with a terrified mew before landing in the towel with blinking green eyes. The poor thing smelled horrible. Yes, he or she looks fine. Hand it here, Mr. Aizawa said. You kids can barely take care of yourselves. Hey, Hitoshi said. I have 3 cats. Or do 3 cats have a Hitoshi? Momo asked with a chuckle. We pulled off a rescue. Ijiro started. but then saw Mr. Aizawa's glare. Yeah, hand the man the kitten, dude. See, Izuku, who sometimes didn't know when to give up, said, "The kitten is perfectly fine. You are not teleporting you or any of your classmates back to the school." "I'm in Class B," Itsuka said helpfully. "No teleporting." Katsuki woke up slowly, gradually making out more and more words in a friendly argument between the dog and the white mage. "I'm telling you, this is going to be emotionally devastating. It would be for anyone, much less someone as impulsive and egocentric as Kat. Well, screw you too, Pooch. We're not going to do him any favors by hiding the truth," Granny Goodness said. "Besides, Quirk suppressant bracelets? He's going to think he's being punished, and that boy proved himself to be a hero yesterday, even despite the mental influence. Now that it's gone, who knows what his mental state is? He may wake up with an entirely different personality than the one we're used to. Nice to be the center of attention, I suppose." "Exactly my point. He's going to have to cope with some huge changes already. We need to ease him into it," the dog argued. Katsuki was careful not to sit up, but he did open his eyes and glance around. He could see the silhouettes of Recovery Girl and Hound Dog on the other side of one of those privacy screens and tried to tune them out. He glanced down at his wrists, breathing out a quiet sigh of relief. If they were planning to put Quirk suppressant cuffs on him, they hadn't done it yet. He moved his stiff fingers, flexing them to get the circulation going. Maybe just a small pop to let them know to keep it down. He stared in horror at his hands as nothing happened. No pop, no bang, not even a tiny spark. He stared at their outlines. From the shape of the shadows, he could tell they were facing away from him. He glanced around and found that hideous yellow backpack he'd left in the van. Folded on top of it were the freshly cleaned clothes he'd bought at the recycle shop, up to and including the pathetic red high tops. Either way, he's probably going to wake up soon, and if our arguing does it, the whole point will be moot. "Let's step into my office," the OGRG said. As soon as he heard the door click, he was up and scrambling to put on the clothes. He pulled back the curtain carefully and sucked in a breath at a few other people occupying beds. But they all seemed to be asleep, thanks to the old lady's quirk. He didn't recognize any of them, so at least there was that. As he moved to the door, he spotted one of those Campos notebooks like D. Midoriya liked to carry. He grabbed it and a pen, slipping out into the hallway and scribbled, "Hero analysis for the future" on the cover. Maybe if he got really lucky and ran into someone blind and stupid, the disguise might fool them. As he moved down the hall, he paused outside of Class 1A, sliding the door open carefully. Part of the ceiling had collapsed, crushing his old desk, but that seemed to be the only damage. Haha, God. Very subtle. Well, it's not like he'd ever have had a place back in 1A anyway. As he slipped out of the main building, he no longer considered himself lucky. Luck hadn't helped him slip away at all. The simple fact that everyone, even the extras from general education, was working to clean up a disaster gave him the chance. UA had been destroyed, and he knew how the school must have felt. He had to get out of here. He made it halfway to the gate before a hand landed on his shoulder with the light buzz of electricity as a warning. "Hey, why aren't you in a gym uniform helping out?" the girl asked. "You look kind of like that first year Ultra. What's your name and class?" He pitched his voice an octave and a half higher than usual and tried to sound a bit pathetic. "Holy whoa, you're a real hero student?" God, the extra practically strutted and preened herself. "That's right. Maiden, the thunder and lightning hero. Awesome. Huh? You get it, right?" No?" Katsuki asked. "Everything is a question, no nicknames. Shit, praise everyone. I mean, yes? I think it sounds awesome, but I don't get it, maybe?" Her shoulders slumped. "It's supposed to make people think of the god, Raiden, but it's Maiden because I'm a, you know what, never mind. Are you a student?" No? I mean, yes. Not at UA, at Aldera High School, I think." She'd obviously never been in the murder hobos class. She wouldn't have lasted a week. She sighed instead of blasting him. You're like the third one today. The UA barrier is still malfunctioning. Listen, it's illegal for you to be on campus. What were you thinking? Katsuki swallowed what little pride he had left. Well, I'm maybe a big fan of Ultra, you know? I was hoping I could show him my Ultra cosplay and maybe get a few hero autographs, he asked, holding out the notebook and pen hopefully and pathetically. She took them and wrote her hero name and epithet on one of the pages. Hold on to that, it'll be worth something one day. Come on. I'll walk you to the gate. He grinned internally and followed her as meekly as he could. This disguise stunk like a fart in a car, but with a third year escorting him, no one looked twice. She gently pushed him off campus. I know it's exciting, but if you're caught on campus again, I'll have to tell a teacher, and that could go on your permanent record. I know. Thank you for the autograph. I'll keep it forever. It will be a family heirloom passed down for generations. She chuckled as he ran down the hill toward the suburbs of Mizudafu. Once Katsuki was out of sight, he ducked into an alley and shredded the notebook before stomping on it. I will never live this shit down. His footsteps led him to his familiar walking commute before the dorms were implemented, which naturally led him right past Deku's old house. He glanced at it briefly, spotting some lady with white hair getting the mail. That's right, Half and Half's mom was living there now. She spotted him and waved in his direction, but he glanced behind him and didn't see anyone. I'm not Ultra, just cosplay, he called and walked faster. Before long, his steps led him to his childhood home. His parents still owned it, of course, but no one had stepped foot in it for months. There were probably still some things inside that he could use. He jumped the fence and crept into the backyard, shaking his head at the sight. His dad had always been a fanatic for yard work, but now it was overgrown with weeds. The patio itself was just as he remembered, one particular stone different than all the rest where he'd tried out one of Midoriya's formulas on his sweat. He counted 2 stones toward the house and lifted that one, getting the emergency key. He slipped into the house and tried the light switch, but the power was out. Dust covered everything, and it had only been a few months. If they didn't clean out the fridge, whatever was left might have achieved sentience by now, and he certainly didn't want to risk it without. He forced that thought away. He scoffed at a new camping backpack with the tags still on, but it was his favorite brand. He moved quickly to the garage, packing up the smallest tent and a bedroll, along with a bunch of emergency rations and some other camping supplies like a survival knife and several filtration straws. His room had been turned upside down, but he found several changes of clothes that should still fit. He changed into one as quick as he could, but none of his old shoes still fit. Ugly red high tops it is. Then he remembered the most important thing. She hadn't taken all of them, he thought with delight, as he grabbed a box of hair dye from his parents' bathroom. God forbid she allow an almost invisible gray hair, but the dye matched his natural hair color. He turned the faucet, fully intending to take care of it here, but the water was off too. He sighed. He'd take care of it at Lake Bakugo. With the addition of the teachers, they had to take 2 vans back to the school, giving Izuku just enough time to grab a new hero phone from the 50th floor of my tower, and Aizawa made damn sure those in the know about One for All were assigned to his, Emi's and Namiri's van. But then he saw the disappointed look on Tenya's face, not to mention the kendo girl. Ida. Switch with Principal Nizu. He'd gone soft. At least he had a chew toy to play with on the way back to school. He also handed the keys to Emi, who blinked in shock. As soon as they were underway, he turned the co-pilot seat around and stared at them one by one. Nizu, Izuku, Achiko, Akatani, Kirishima, Ishido. How is it, I wonder, that the only ones not responsible for any of my current problems are Ms. Fukukado, Ms. Kayama, and the problem child? I'd better not be, Emi said. Namuri let out an offended, "Hey!" His students, including Izuku, all looked down at the floor of the van, as if the most important thing in the world were written on their shoes. Nizu, however, folded his stubby little arms across his chest and stared back. Shit, he'd remember who the boss was. I have explained my reasoning, Mr. Aizawa, and your students performed superbly. It would have taken a week to gather heroes with the proper skills to pull off the mission and rescue, I might add, two of your other students. They were always supervised, and more than capable of dealing with the League of Villains in a limited engagement. I say that with absolute confidence because they did exactly that. It is a testament to the training that you, All Might, and the other teachers have given them. I for one could not be prouder. You are free to be angry with me, but they are not to be punished. Izawa buried his head in his hands. I hate that you're right. I couldn't be prouder. Several of the students exchanged hesitant smiles. That doesn't mean I agree. They're first-year students. They shouldn't have faced villains at all yet, and this is what? The fourth time? The fact that they did well doesn't excuse us. I don't want them in the field again until they have their provisional licenses. We're sorry, Mr. Izawa, Mina said, breaking into tears. He stared at her impassively. I know you can cry on command. I've seen you do it during heroics class to get an advantage on your male classmates. Dudette? Ijiro asked. Shit, Mina muttered. Just ruin my Christmas, Mr. Izawa. I'm not sorry, Achiko said. I'd have done the same for everyone in this van, or the other one for that matter. Do you think Nem wouldn't do the same for you? Namuri tilted her head and winced. I am ride or die show. She turned to the rest of them. He does have a point, though. That was all for one last night. You all know what he's capable of, and he got very close to Achiko. There's also a good chance he stole Bakugo's quirk. Shoto shrugged. Izuku's my cousin. I like fumigage, too. I get it, I do, Izawa said with a defeated sigh. Just please, for the black of my hair, nobody goes off on their own. At that moment, Principal Nizu's phone rang with a cheerful ringtone. He glanced at it, then pressed a button. Hello, recovery girl, Nizu said. You're on speakerphone with Mr. Izawa, Ms. Fukukado, Ms. Kayama, and several members of Class 1A. I hope this is some good news. There was a pause on the line. Katsuki Bakugo somehow managed to sneak off campus. We have no idea where he is. His parents haven't seen him, and the police confirmed that someone entered the Bakugo home off campus. Some camping gear is missing. Izuku locked eyes with Mr. Izawa. I can find him. Achiko squeezed his shoulder, and he patted her hand, but didn't take his eyes off his teacher. Problem child, no? Problem child, yes, Izuku said. I know where he is, or at least have a list of places he might be. I can bring him back. Izawa shook his head. The two of you have too much history. Tell me where he is, and I'll get him. I only know because of that history, Izuku said with steel behind his voice. Whatever else might have happened between us, he got hurt for me. We might never be friends, but I owe him that much. Izawa sighed. Go. No teleportation until we have time to do tests, though. Achiko squeezed his hand. Are you sure? No, Izuku said. But I need to be the one to do this. She nodded and he gave her a quick kiss before opening the door and flying toward Muzutafu. Chapter 2. And Find Out Part 2. The list of places Bakugo could have gone was reasonably short, and while Izuku technically had permission to use his quirk, once he landed in the Bakugo's backyard, he decided he wouldn't need to use it. He'd lived in Muzutafu for 12 years quirkless. He could handle one day. He called his uncle Masaru and waited until the phone clicked. Hello. This is Masaru Bakugo. Hi, Uncle Masaru. It's Izuku, he said. I'm in the backyard of your house looking for Suki. Izuku, how are you? The man asked fondly. I'm good. I just figured, we did grow up together, Izuku said. If anyone knew where to check other than you and Aunt Mitsuki, I'd probably have the best chance. You're a good kid, Izuku, Uncle Masaru said with a sigh. Probably better than Katsuki deserves considering how he treated you for so many years. If you look at the patio, there's one of the paving stones that doesn't match because Katsuki destroyed the original playing around with some chemicals in his sweat. Starting from there, count 2 stones toward the back door. That one's loose and there's a spare key hidden underneath it. You're a hero student now. I bet you'll find all sorts of clues and stuff other people would miss. Hold on a second, please. Izuku could hear a very faint conversation in the background. What? Oh, Izuku's looking for cats. He's starting at our house. What? Why didn't you pack them? No, we shouldn't. Yeah, oh my god. Okay. I'll tell him. After a moment, Uncle Masaru returned sounding a bit disturbed. Yeah, so, you know where Katsuki's room is? Everything inside the house should be unlocked. Just please don't open the bottom drawer of our dresser. Izuku cringed and said with absolute conviction, I won't. The police report said everything was covered in dust, so they used a flyer to track where he went with his footprints. I'll keep off the ground, too. I doubt he even went into your room, but if he did, I'll stay away from the dresser. I'll find him. Love you. Izuku retrieved the spare key and, after activating flight, entered the house. He followed the footsteps into the kitchen, but it seems Bakugo hadn't done more than look around. The garage was next, and from the dust-free spots, his former childhood friend had taken a backpack, a tent, and a bunch of other camping supplies. He then hovered his way up the stairs, and using Emerald Dragon to avoid messing up any fingerprints, entered a very familiar room. The posters had changed since the last time Izuku was here, but it was the same old room. It was hard to tell what Katsuki might have taken. Izuku groaned. You actually spent the time to clean your room, you lunatic? He glanced around for anything that could be a note, but his eyes ended up drawn to the top shelf of Bakugo's bookcase. There, still in the original packaging, were 12 rare figures of All Might in various costumes and poses. He didn't really remember the first 3, but his mom let him pick all the rest, each given to Bakugo in a carefully wrapped present with a tag that read to Kaken, from Izuku and Aunt Inko. He hovered closer and noticed that under each one, the tags were taped to the shelf. The first 3 included Uncle Hisashi in the from field. He let out a slow breath from the surprise. To Izuku's horror, Bakugo had gone into his parents' room, but to his relief, he'd only gone into the bathroom. He'd opened one of the drawers beneath the sink, but the only sign he'd taken anything was an empty box of Suicide Blonde hair dye in the trash. He rolled his eyes at the slogan, "You'll die by your own hands." The Ender Woods hadn't changed much in the past 5 or so months since Katsuki had last visited, but he did notice that the well-worn path he usually followed was slightly overgrown now. Mizudafu had always been a confusing mix of big city and small town, but he was surprised that he hardly ever saw brats playing in the woods considering he and the Baku squad spent so much time here while growing up. Then again, somewhere along the way, someone had posted a variety of no trespassing signs, but Katsuki ignored them. He was just surprised no one else did, too. The heart of the wood was what he liked to call Lake Bakugo, even if it was little more than a pond, created over that summer after Midoriya moved to Tokyo and he needed an outlet for his anger. That stupid fallen tree over a small creek had been the first thing he'd blown up, but as he practiced ever bigger explosions, he'd created a huge pit that the creek slowly filled. Each blast blew away more dirt until only the bedrock remained, a beautiful bowl of granite with veins of quartz running through it. The flow of the creek, and a lack of any sort of manufacturing near the natural hot spring that fed it, left the waters crystal clear and surprisingly warm, almost like an onsen. Even if it probably wasn't needed, he set up a jug and began the gravity-powered filtration process through one of the life straws, then started setting up his camp. People could say whatever the hell they liked about Katsuki Bakugo, but no one could deny the hard work he put into everything he tackled. He erected the tent in less than 15 minutes, just in time to refill his filtration process. Then he wandered through the wood, gathering wood and foraging for food. Horse chestnuts, yamogi, and wild radishes grew all over the forest, in addition to various types of berries and mushrooms. He didn't even bother collecting any butterbur, since it dominated the clearing around Lake Bakugo. After his first trip, he focused exclusively on firewood, since he had more than enough food for 2 days and his stasis field container couldn't hold anymore. An hour after he'd arrived, he had a campsite fit for a king in exile. He set out a change of clothes and looked around to make sure of his solitude. He moved toward the outlet of the pond and shrugged off his clothing before sinking into the warm waters with a sigh. God, he needed this and realized he felt Japanese for the first time in his life. When your sweat can explode, well, you don't get many chances to soak your body in warm water. The chance to take hot showers had been one of the few benefits of his month of incarceration. But even then, he couldn't just bask in the warmth. For nearly an hour, he laid back and enjoyed letting the tension ease away, and honestly, he'd rarely relaxed since the age of 5. Katsuki knew he pushed himself hard, and the admittedly small number of members of Class 1A who cared sometimes teased him for going to bed early, but it took that long to unwind enough for sleep to claim him. His chest seemed to squeeze, and he reached into his bag and grabbed the bottle of nitroglycerin pills, letting one dissolve under his tongue. "Fuck," he muttered. "I'm so fucked up." He let himself cry like some damn baby for a good 10 minutes before shoving that shit aside. He felt a bit bad adding chemicals to the water as he dyed his hair back to his natural blonde color. But the stream didn't have any fish and fed straight into the ocean. Besides, most products these days were designed to be easily biodegradable, and the old hag was a closet hippie tree hugger, though she'd rather claw off someone's face rather than admit it. The slow current drew the green away, vanishing as if it had never been. He grabbed his camping mirror and for the first time in days saw Katsuki Bakugo staring back at him. The only difference was the ugly scar that ran down his cheek from his right eye, and that scar continued down his neck and then the length of his body to the wound on his leg. Whoever that bastard had been, he'd left his mark. All Might stood beside the Iron Maiden with a deep sense of satisfaction as they descended far beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean. Even with the speed of the elevator, it took several minutes, and his ears popped due to the pressure change before the door opened. "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here," Gran Torino muttered beside him as Gyges and Briareos pushed the Iron Maiden forward. The two guards entered the huge cell, Briareos keeping a hand on a panel attached to the oxygen feed. "Now, Mr. Shigaraki, let me explain something for you," the guard said. "My hand is currently the only thing holding back a cocktail of some of the deadliest substances known to man from your air supply. If my hand comes off the plate, this will force enough compounds into your lungs that the pressure alone would kill you. That's not even considering all the nasty things they could each do individually, and I can promise at least one of them is rare enough that you don't have a quirk that could survive it. I say this not to threaten you, but so that you understand that if you behave like a gentleman, you'll be treated like one." "Of course, officer," All for One said with a raspy voice. "What can I say? I gambled and lost. Now I will be in your care. Do with me as you will. After all, you've been quite polite, and unpleasantness would be unfortunate for all concerned." Jaiji said, "Hold out your arms, please." With smooth motions and making sure the villain couldn't touch him with his bare hands, he placed a straitjacket made from woven condenium on the villain before securing it. He shifted the villain to a custom chair. "Comfortable?" he asked. Once All for One nodded, he secured the straitjacket to the chair. In the end, the chair was as much a tomb as anything else. "I'm going to disable the dead man's switch and we're going to hook you up to the dedicated oxygen supply," Briareos said. "There are still a million ways this room can kill us all, so please avoid any hostile movements." "A million?" All for One asked with a touch of humor. "Surely even I don't rate above a few hundred, perhaps 1,000 at the most." He waited in silence until they were done. "Are you not going to give me a warning about the variety of different ways the room could kill me?" "A smart man like you, Mr. Shigaraki," Jaiji said, "can surely figure out most of them, but a few of them might just be a surprise to you, however brief." "I see, metaphorically, of course," All for One said. "Thank you, gentlemen. But I've been so rude to my other guests. Hello, All Might, Gran Torino. Perhaps you'd care to sit." "I'm glad to see you here, Sakataro Shigaraki," All Might said. "Know that you will never leave this place alive. Justice has finally been served. I see my grandson has been spreading family secrets. I'm so very curious as to how he managed to stumble across my birth name, but even the most thorough of expunging records can only do so much, I suppose. Really, though, I would prefer it if we kept things on the professional level and you used my real name of All for One, Toshinori Yagi. See? I've known your identity for quite some time and haven't revealed that knowledge to the public." although I must admit, it was a pleasant diversion tracking down and turning every living relative of yours into a Nomu. Yours too, Sorihiko Torino. I wouldn't want you to feel left out. You're both the last of your lines, and I can't help but wonder how many of them you've both inadvertently destroyed. None, All Might said through gritted teeth. Anyone who fell into your hands was dead long before we would have met them as Nomu. Ending them would be a kindness. I see, again metaphorically, All for One said. I wonder if young Izuku feels the same way about his father? He, his mother, and Tamura are the only surviving relatives of Nana Shimura, and it was delightful giving decay to Tamura, knowing that he would wipe out the rest of his family by accident. I really must introduce Tamura to his aunt one of these days. You won't get the chance, you bastard, Gran Torino said. We'll find him and get him the help he needs, and he'll face justice for his own crimes. As for you, your trial will be held in abstention by the World Heroes Organization in a few months. I don't have any doubts that they'll choose to end you. Then we'll try out the million methods built into this room all in one go. You'd have a higher chance getting the death penalty with a Japanese court, All for One said with a smile. I could instruct my lawyer to file for a change of venue, if you'd like. I like the odds as they are without the HPSC being involved, All Might said. Less chance of your agents influencing the outcome. Oh, I didn't realize you had any detective skills, All Might. All for One laughed. Or did young Izuku discover that as well? I would ask how long you've known. But I do enjoy a mystery, and I'm working on a few right now. Imagine whatever you want, but you'll die here, All Might said. Maybe, but do you want to know why you were able to capture me, All Might? All for One leaned forward and grinned. I let you live too long. You became smart with the wisdom of age and experience. You had time to see my patterns, and after a life that spans multiple centuries, I became something of a creature of habit. You'll regret this day as society falls apart around you, and even your shoulders won't be able to keep it from crumbling. I'll look back on today as one of my crowning achievements as I pass the torch on to the next generation of heroes. Ha, like young Izuku? I'm honestly surprised you chose a delightful little schemer as your successor rather than a muscle-bound moron. You should have heard it, All Might. The skillful way he manipulated Tamura to sow doubts and distrust in me. I couldn't have done better myself, and that's saying something. I suppose that's the influence of my genes in the boy. Oh, do thank him for that on my behalf. Tamura has needed a bit of rebellion in him for quite some time. Revealing the truth isn't manipulation, All Might said, and if young Ultra has created a wedge between you and Tamura Shigaraki, then we'll use that to redeem the boy. Oh, you do that. You see, that's why you'll fail. Youth lacks wisdom but makes up for it with energy and passion. With me here, Tamura Shigaraki has inherited my entire organization. I at least understand the concept of mutually assured destruction. Young Tamura, on the other hand, only knows destruction. He hates you, and your little successor, with a passion that I'm incapable of drawing forth after such a long life. He'll kill you both, and his rage will overcome the iron will of One for All. He'll slay Inko and Izuku to get it, and then bring it to me. Just because I know he'd never believe you, when he does, I will kill the last living relative of Nana Shimura as well. All Might clenched his fist, but Gran Torino grabbed his arm and shook his head. Let the courts have their say. They'll put an end to him. All for One laughed. How cruel, especially for Mandalay and Katsuki Bakugo. Their quirks will die with me, then. When they arrived on campus, the rest of Strike Force Ultra, but don't tell Izuku, rushed to the infirmary without really listening to their teacher, and were shocked to find Fumikage the only one there. Recovery Girl was just about to let the boy leave. Fumi, Mina yelled. I'm glad you're okay, but where's everyone else? If you'd bothered to listen, Mr. Aizawa said from behind them, your injured classmates were sent to Mizudafu General and have already been released. The principal is buying you all pizza, and excluding Izuku, they should already be at the dorms. Tokoyami is ready to be released, as long as he promises to take it easy for the next few days, Recovery Girl said. And remembers that he and I have a session in 2 days, Hound Dog said from the couch in the infirmary. You've all been through a lot, so the door to the doghouse is always open. When you see Izuku Midoriya, I want to see him. You can get in line after me, Recovery Girl said. Aizawa grunted. After I talk with him. You can all take a number, Achiko said with a determined smile. The 3 teachers glanced at each other. After a moment of awkward silence, Recovery Girl said, I suppose tomorrow will be fine. Unwinding after the stressful events of the past few days will do the pup some good, Hound Dog agreed. Aizawa ducked his face into his capture weapon. Fine, but send him to me first when you're done. Besides, he thought, I'm not above rigging the odds in my favor. Izuku checked Dagoba Beach first, but honestly, that was more for him than Bakugo. They'd played here a few times as kids, but that was when the beach was a trash dump and Bakugo could get away with using his quirk. It was full of families enjoying the warm waters of the Pacific Ocean, and he honestly doubted Bakugo would go somewhere with so many people. It served as a reminder that he'd worked hard to get where he was today, but the stares, pointing, and hushed conversations told him this was a bad idea. He'd been on the news one too many times lately. He checked the Aldera Public School, but he knew he was only avoiding the inevitable. The school surprised him, bearing a closed indefinitely sign. Not just closed for the summer break, but perhaps permanently. Signs had been placed on the front door to each building by the Board of Education, announcing that due to the ongoing investigation, all students would be attending the nearby Mizutofu General. He thought to check the roof, but a voice called out to him. Excuse me, but the school is closed. No trespassing allowed. Izuku turned, and then with a smile bowed. Hello, Mr. Onuki. It's been a long time. The thin, balding janitor blinked, before his face was split with a smile. Little Midoriya? Well, look at you, kid. Sprouted like a green bean. I thought that was you during the sports festival, but everyone was saying it couldn't be. I was a bit of a late bloomer, Izuku said. God, watching the teachers and principal poop out bricks worrying about how they treated you was the funniest thing I've ever seen, Mr. Onuki said. Then they shut this place down. Hope you told someone everything the bastards did to you. Now it's just me keeping an eye on the place until they tear it down. I do want to thank you for always being nice to me, sir. You might have been the only member of the staff who was, Izuku said with another deeper bow. None of that, kid, the man said. Us quirkless folks have got to stick together, although I guess you're not quirkless anymore. I'm not sure I could be considered staff. I was just the janitor. Your kindness meant a lot to me, Izuku countered. Something about this place was always off, Mr. Onuki said. I mean, being quirkless in this super-powered society isn't easy, but this place, it just wasn't normal. Izuku nodded. I know what you mean. Sorry to be a bother, but you haven't seen any former students around, have you? I'm looking for Katsuki Bakugo. The man frowned and shook his head. I do patrol a couple of times a day, including the rooftops. Sensors would have let me know, too. That's how I knew you were here. From what I remember of the brat, he wasn't exactly the sneaky type. Thank you, Izuku said. If you do see him, could you call UA, please? As Izuku left Aldera behind him, he sighed. He'd been putting it off long enough. Really, there was only one place Bakugo would go locally with camping gear. Assuming he hadn't jumped on a train for one of the mountains, there was really no other option. The members of Class 1A walked back toward Heights Alliance, and Fumikage noted that he was somehow surrounded by his friends, as if they were either keeping an eye on him or protecting him from the world, perhaps both. Hey, Mina said as the silence got too much for her. You know what they call a grand burger in America? Don't they call it a grand burger? Ijiro asked. Nope. They call it a quota pounder with cheese. I think you mean quarter pounder with cheese, Momo said. How are you even passing English? Achiko asked with a giggle. Barely, Mina said with a grin. Wait, why would they call it something like that instead of a grand burger? Hitoshi asked. They still use the United States customary units, and those are based on the old UK imperial system, Shoto offered. We studied those at Some, Tenya said. The whole thing is dreadfully confusing. 12 inches in a foot, 3 feet in a yard, 1,760 yards in a mile. Don't even get me started on the temperature scale. 98.6 is body temperature. That's almost boiling ribbit, Tsuyu said in horror. No, I remember this, Kyoka said. Boiling is 212, right? The Fahrenheit scale, I think. Thank you, Freddie Mercury, she thought. Fumikage smiled as the dorm came into view. Thank you all for making me feel better. And rescuing me, for that matter. Toru pulled him into a hug. Thank you for saving Hitoshi and me. I know it cost you a lot. Fumikage waved his hand toward one of the small picnic areas. Could we talk? I'd like to speak to all of you before facing everyone. Katsuki changed into his own clothes with a sigh of relief, and then used the damn hoodie as kindling to start a campfire. The recycle shop Punisher shirt and cargo pants he kept, but these shoes would have to go at some point. For now, he didn't have any other options. He glanced up at the darkening sky, wishing he was far enough from Tokyo to really get a good look at the stars instead of just the brightest, but that's all anyone paid attention to, the best and the brightest. He sighed, knowing that didn't include him anymore. A discreet cough let him know he wasn't alone, but he knew this wasn't going to last anyway. Here to take me to Tartarus? No, the school's already got that mess sorted out, but I have been looking for you, Izuku said, staring down at where Bakugo sat by the tiny canyon. I figured you would be here, but the Ender would sure have changed. I thought the fallen tree was around here somewhere. I was sure you'd be there. This is it, Bakugo said quietly. Right here. I blew it up shortly after you moved to Tokyo. Izuku whispered, Why? He bit down a flash of anger. That tree was part of his childhood, too. Bakugo didn't have the right to destroy it. Not like that had ever stopped him before. Not looking up, Bakugo answered. I was pissed, and a little asshole. You left and went to Tokyo. Aunt Inko was going to work for All Might. Hell, my mom wouldn't shut up about how you were next-door neighbors with All Might. The day you left, you called me Bakugo like I was a damn stranger. Bakugo, you hated me. Every day you told me what a loser I was. I was still Kakin. You told me to kill myself multiple times. The last thing you said to me before I left for Tokyo was, Hear that? Nerd. Even death can't make you any less of a Gene joke, but feel free to try. I was wrong, okay? I was wrong about that and everything else. Damn it, I'm trying to say I'm the one who screwed everything up. I'm trying to apologize. For real this time. Not because the murder hobo and the dog are making me, and not because some fucking voice in my head is telling me to give you a false sense of security, but because I want to. What the hell caused everything go wrong between us? Izuku? Bakugo said. Izuku looked down at Katsuki. You got a quirk, and I didn't. Fucking Dr. Tsubasa. Those quirk lessons? He did something to me, Katsuki said desperately. Put something in my head. I know I fucked up too, but still. Izuku sighed. You were almost 7 when those sessions started. You had already been calling me Deku for almost 3 years. Defenseless Izuku. Deku shrub. Dekunobo. I'm not saying you deserve all the blame for everything that happened, but you were already pushing me away before that influence was a factor. Maybe that's unfair of me, but it hurt. I was wrong about everything. Damn it, I'm trying to apologize, Izuku. It's Midoriya, not Izuku, he said firmly. We're not on a first-name basis anymore and haven't been for a long time. We're past the point where an apology is even necessary because it just doesn't matter. Then why did you come looking for me? Katsuki asked. Why did you waste your time? It's not a waste of time. You were lost, and I came to find you because I'm the person with the best chance of finding you, Izuku said. I didn't do it specifically for you. I did it because I want to be a hero, and that's what heroes do. You really do hate me, don't you? Guess I deserve it. You're wrong about that. I don't hate you, and even if I did, you wouldn't deserve to be hated. I don't much like you, though, or at least the person you've been. I'm through lying about it to the class, the teachers, to you, and most importantly, to myself. You're just someone I used to know, but I am grateful for what you tried to do in Kamino, so I owe you that much. Incidentally, we're not actually related. At least not biologically. I recently found out my mom was adopted. So here we are, strangers. Take a fucking swing at me, then, Katsuki yelled. It certainly didn't stop me when He glanced down at those hideous red high tops. Shoes were on the other feet. I'm not going to do that, Bakugo, Izuku said. For what it's worth, I am sorry this happened. Fuck. Wouldn't be very heroic of you, would it? Katsuki asked. Beating down a quirkless person. Yeah, it's gone. Whoever that potato-faced bastard was, he took everything from me. Oh, for fuck's sake. Get over yourself, Izuku muttered. What the hell did you just say? Katsuki snarled, his old anger lighting up like the damn hoodie. If all you had was your damn quirk, you didn't have a lot to begin with. Fuck you. All I ever wanted was to become a hero, and now that's fucking gone. You think I've still got a place at UA after everything that happened? Katsuki yelled. You think any of them give a shit about me now? They fucking sent you to find me. The teachers are probably out getting sloshed celebrating the fact that they're rid of the damn delinquent. Izuku nodded his head behind him. Why don't you ask Mr. Aizawa then? At the edge of the clearing, almost invisible in the gloom of night, stood the class 1 a homeroom teacher. Problem child. School delinquent. Why the fuck did you bring him here? Katsuki asked with disbelief. He didn't, Aizawa said, holding up his phone. Midoriya's caused so many problems. I made him wear a bell like a cat. Or rather, tracking chips in his shoes and belt. Imagine my surprise when I picked up 2 separate signals gradually moving closer. Oh, come on. You mean you donated these damn things to a recycle shop? Katsuki said, staring at his feet. Izuku shrugged. I went through a growth spurt last year. I never even got the chance to wear them. As much as I loathe this conversation, what does it matter? Katsuki asked. I'm fucking useless now. You two probably have more important things to worry about. Second verse, same as the first, Izuku muttered. You might not be in my class anymore, Aizawa said, but UA still has rules about students being off campus without permission. As it is, you're going to have detention for a week once classes resume, Bakugo. Katsuki rolled his eyes. You know damn good and well I'm not a student anymore. I think I'd know if you'd been expelled, because I'm the one who does that, Aizawa said calmly. I'm famous for it. Now let's strike the camp and get back to campus before you get a second week for violating curfew. I don't have a quirk anymore. Damn it. Funny, but acceptance letters are sent to people, not quirks. Yours was addressed to Katsuki Bakugo, not Explosion. You're going to be evaluated by Hound Dog until your brain will feel like it's going to fall out. At Katsuki's wince at the expression, Aizawa added, Sorry, brain will feel like it's turned to mush, but if he gives his stamp of approval, you'll be working with Snipe and Power Loader to determine your options. Someone quirkless can't be a hero, Katsuki said quietly. I don't see why not, Aizawa said with a shrug. Someone's going to be the first someday. Maybe you'll have what it takes. So stand up and find out. Chapter 3, Proof. It said a lot that the silence of the walk back to UA was enough to make even Shota Aizawa uncomfortable. While he knew Izuku well enough to recognize when the kid was overcompensating for something, the silence from Bakugo was a different story. For as long as he'd known the teen, Bakugo didn't hesitate to speak his mind, loudly and often. As they walked along, Izuku held himself in tension like a bowstring, eyes fixed far ahead. Bakugo's face fought a war with itself, with anger, sadness, and uncertainty fighting over the no-man's land of his expression. Every so often, he'd glance over at the other boy, disappointment and regret throwing their hats into the metaphorical ring at the fact that Izuku seemed determined to pretend his childhood friend no longer existed. Aizawa knew how Bakugo felt. Part of him wanted to scream, "Talk, for God's sake." Another part wanted to cave and tell the one who still had a quirk that he could go ahead and fly back to the school or even teleport there. Shoulda, coulda, woulda made the problem child tell him where Bakugo might be and kept him on campus. They both needed this, though. Their childhood had left a festering wound on both boys, and as loath as he was to throw them together for anything, they both needed to find a way to get a measure of closure. Both hated each other on a fundamental level, but both cared, and it ate at them. He caught a glimpse of movement from Izuku and glanced over, catching the finger spelling. "The corruption is gone." Aizawa spelled back a quick "good" with one hand and nodded. "That JSL?" Bakugo asked as Yue finally came into view. He gave out a huff at their expressions. "Don't look so shocked. It's a requirement for second year, and I like to get as far ahead of the game as I can. You don't have to coddle me like a toddler. All I caught was is gone." "What's this mean, Quirk?" he asked, spelling out the sign for corruption. He paused. "Wait, that can't be right. Quirk is this." He made another sign. Izuku and Aizawa shared a complicated look, and Katsuki shrugged. "Fine. Don't tell me. Here's a stone from my glass house, though. It's rude to use a language one person doesn't speak to talk about them behind their damn back." "It means corruption," Izuku said softly. "Whatever Dr. Tsubasa did to your head, I could sense it. It was the same as the thing controlling the Nomu. Whatever it was, it's gone now." "You could sense that shit?" Katsuki asked. "No damn wonder you couldn't figure out your damn quirk." "Oh, excuse me, quirk framework like the great Kotatsu Reiki says. You should call it Ultra Swiss Army Knife. Bet the damn thing has a corkscrew built into it. It slices, it dices, it makes julienne fries." "Nizu wasn't supposed to tell anyone," Izuku muttered with a sigh. "Get over yourself. What's wrong with you? Kotatsu Reiki is fucking famous." "I'd want everyone to know," Katsuki growled. "Shit like this is why, or at least partially why, I have trouble trusting you. You keep crap like this a secret. When we got to quirk studies, you'd have just nodded along without bothering to tell anyone that you wrote the damn book." "Yeah, what the hell was I thinking? It's not like I used to get beatings whenever I did better on a test than someone. Why would I think being a published author would piss someone off?" Izuku asked snidely. Katsuki started to open his mouth, but Aizawa was faster. "Enough. Cut out the bickering, both of you." "I asked Izuku to verify," Aizawa said. "It'll cut weeks off of observation time and let you catch up quicker." "Well, glad Izuku was able to let you know for sure. You didn't have to hide it from me," Bakugo said sullenly, emphasizing the teacher slipping and using a student's first name. "I know somebody screwed my head. You think knowing they finally pulled out wouldn't be a damn relief?" He threw his hands up. "Gah! Fuck. I should be grateful. And I'm screwing it all up. I thought you were talking about my damn quirk. God, we'd probably all be better off if you just expelled my arrogant ass." Both Aizawa and Izuku stopped and stared at Bakugo, and he turned with a glare. "Fucking what?" Aizawa grinned. "Look where you are, delinquent." Bakugo glanced around at the campus, and then back at the other two standing on the sidewalk. "UA. So what?" "So, they finally got the UA barrier fixed a few hours ago," Aizawa said. "It recognized you. You've still got a place here." Katsuki rolled his eyes. "Yeah, in the fucking dungeon. Let's go before I change my damn mind." He resumed his march toward the remains of the main building. "Good job, but go back to the dorm," Aizawa said to Izuku. "Achiko's going to lead a revolt if she doesn't get to see you soon. I'll take care of Bakugo." As he walked away, he called over his shoulder. "And no teleporting people, problem child." As he walked along muttering under his breath, "I'll show you teleporting people. I'll take the whole class to the beach tomorrow." In Hawaii, Izuku knew three things. He was being extremely childish, he was enjoying it immensely, and he wasn't really going to teleport anyone. As he got close to the dorms, he saw the rescue team, not Strike Force Ultra no matter how often Ijiro said it, sitting around one of the picnic tables. Thankfully, Achiko's back was to him, and he rose silently into the air holding a finger to his lips. He was almost in tickling range when she spun around and slammed into him with a hug and a kiss. "Okay," he said. "This is much better than what I had planned." "You big jerk," she cried. "I've been worried sick about you." "Sorry," he said, pulling her into a comforting hug. "I am here, and I'm not going anywhere." Everyone called out a greeting, but Ijiro asked quietly, "Did you find him, dude?" Izuku nodded. "He's with Mr. Aizawa, and he's fine. They probably went to the infirmary. It's already dark. What are you all still doing outside?" "I like it dark," Fumikage said. "And I'm glad you're here. I wanted to speak to those of you who came to my rescue. I have some things to share, and an apology to make." "You've done nothing wrong," Tenya said, chopping a hand through the air. "If anything, I owe you an apology for allowing you to be captured." "You had broken ribs, Tenya," Itsuka said, patting his back. "You are faultless, class rep," Fumikage said. "I bear much of the blame for our recent troubles. I felt you all should know, especially you, Izuku, considering what you went through. I was a traitor to our class and school. I wish to provide an apology and an explanation, even if I do not deserve your forgiveness." "They were after me anyway," Izuku said quietly. "Hold on, that wasn't you, Fumi," Toru said. "That was Dark Shadow." "There is no fundamental difference," Fumikage said. He held up a hand and wisps of black and blue darkness formed the outline of a girl's face. "What you knew as Dark Shadow preferred to be called Yosizum, but she took the form of my childhood friend, Kaori Miyazono. We both grew up together but didn't truly become close until our first year of middle school. I regret that because we were the two outcasts of my school. I was the only student with mutant features, and she was quirkless." Izuku sucked in a deep breath. "Fumikage, you don't have to explain anything if you don't want to." Fumikage nodded, but then said, "Thank you for that, Izuku, but this is not merely my debt to you all driving me. I need to tell this tale. I regret that we did not become friends sooner, because we only really knew one another for a year. In the small town where I grew up, mutants and the quirkless are treated much harsher than in the cities. When we were 13, the insults and threats became too much for her, and she took her own life." He mimed, moving his fingers up the length of his arm with a shudder. Several of the girls covered their mouths with their hands, and Tsuyu pulled Fumikage into a hug with a sad rib bit. "I do not blame her. If not for what I had done, I might have chosen the same path," he whispered. "I was the only one she had, but I had her and Dark Shadow. I always had Dark Shadow, ever since shortly before my quirk came in." "Wait a moment, I thought Dark Shadow was your quirk," Momo said. "One of the 10 extremely rare sentient quirks." "I have not decided on a new name for my real quirk," Fumikage said. "But Dark Shadow was, at least at first, my imaginary friend. Someone who was always on my side, who shared my interests, even those I would not admit to having. My real quirk allows me to generate and manipulate darkness, making it solid if I choose. That allowed me to give Dark Shadow a form." "Hold on," Hitoshi said. "I could control you and Dark Shadow separately. Isn't that proof that you were separate people?" "Only proof that, in time, she became a distinct personality because of my own anguish," Fumikage said, looking much smaller as if he wanted to fold in upon himself. "I was not strong enough to take the insults, the grief, and the anger at the unfair treatment I received, so I created another personality that was strong enough to bear it. I forced all my negative emotions on her, and with each passing year she became angrier and more filled with rage. I would see people with mutant features on television treated with respect, at least those who are attractive like Mina, Tsuyu, and Mirko, but those like me were often the butt of jokes. Somewhere deep down inside, I resented those with normal appearances, and I fed Dark Shadow a constant stream of that hatred, while trying to pretend I didn't." "Dissociative identity disorder," Izuku whispered to Fumikage's nod. "What's that?" Ijiro asked. "It's commonly called multiple personalities," Shoto said. Two or more complete personalities in the same body, often with distinct sets of skills and memories. I do not know if that is exactly correct, but it is close enough, Fumikage whispered. I convinced myself that Dark Shadow and I were two different people, especially after Miyazono's death. I needed a friend and an outlet for my rage, and I hid behind her as she destroyed the school's kendo club building and threatened to kill a teacher and my more abusive classmates for mocking her. Oh my God, Kyoka said. That's terrible. How did you find out? Fumikage let out a shaky breath. Indirectly through Mr. Aizawa. His quirk allows him to cancel other quirks. Whenever he used it on me, Dark Shadow would permanently forget things, but only thing I already knew. She already had it all figured out, though, or she always knew. She was always smarter than I was. Toru suddenly vanished with a pained sob. You mean when I turned on my bracelet, I killed her? No, Toru. When you turned on your bracelet, I had to accept all the things I'd forced on her over the last 12 years. All the things that I kept hidden from myself, all the things I didn't want to see about myself, I got them back. You couldn't have killed Dark Shadow. She was me. Here I thought I needed therapy, Shoto muttered from beside Fumikage. With a sound that was a cross between a laugh and a sob, Fumikage put his hand on the other boy's shoulder. You do. I think we all do after the year we've had. None more than me, though. I'm going to start seeing Hound Dog regularly, and I want you all to know how sorry I am. There was so much hatred in me that I betrayed you all, in thought and deed, through Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow was wrong, though. She wasn't Yosuzume. She was Inenra. I know that story, Achiko said. My grandfather used to talk about Inenra, a divine being of smoke and darkness, right? Secretive and slow to trust, and only seen by those who are honorable, kind, and well-meaning, Fumikage said. I know this because all of you saw her and cared for her. He hopped off the picnic table and bowed to them in the Dajiza position. I beg of you all, please remember her that way. She was not responsible for my failings. Suyu put a hand on his shoulder. We couldn't hate her without hating you, Fumi, and you're our friend. Please remember that, Ribbit. I will, he said. That is why I am changing my hero name. From now on, in honor of her memory and all the sacrifices she made for me. I mentioned this to Mr. Aizawa before, but I received approval from Ms. Kayama and Mr. Yamada earlier today. Henceforth, I will be known as Dark Shadow, the Inenra hero. Katsuki walked toward the elevator when Aizawa's voice said, Nope, this way. He turned and had to rush to keep up with the teacher before realizing they were heading toward the infirmary. Are you out of your mind? The old lady is going to kill me, he said. That's only a remote possibility, Aizawa countered. Whereas my death is an absolute certainty if I don't bring you to her. So suck it up, kid. As Bakugo started to turn, the capture weapon shot out and wrapped around him, lifting him into the air and leaving him trailing behind the teacher like a red balloon floating in the summer sky. This thing was bullshit when I had my quirk, and it's still bullshit without it, Katsuki muttered. You're going through nitroglycerin withdrawal, Aizawa said. Just stealing a bottle of pills every month isn't going to cut it. She needs to come up with a schedule to gradually wean you off it so that your heart doesn't explode. Ha, at least I'll get one last explosion off, Katsuki groaned. You know, you're only in second place among the first years for explosions caused, Aizawa said. The front runner doesn't even have an emitter quirk. What the hell? Seriously? Aizawa nodded, sliding open the door to the infirmary. Her quirk is called Zoom, and it's a mutant quirk that gives her telescopic vision. And she's caused more explosions than me? Sounds like a psycho. Really leaning into that glass house thing, kid. Is that a Bakugo burrito trailing behind you? Recovery girl asked. Bring him to me. We're going to have a little chat about listening to doctor's orders and stealing medication. I just borrowed it, he protested. Then to prove he didn't have self-preservation instincts, he asked, Don't you need to worry about some bad old putty-tat eating your Tweety bird? Don't get smart with me, boy, she said. I know you took it because if you didn't, you'd be dead by now, you little fool. That reminds me. Self-medication. Of all the idiotic hair-brained stunts. She paused and a wicked grin that said, "Free apples for pale princesses," spread across her face. This one was Izuku Midoriya levels of recklessness. "Ouch, now you're just being nasty," he muttered, turning to Aizawa. "Is it too late to lock me in the damn dungeon?" Yuga Aoyama rested on the couch in the common area, merely basking in the conversation of his friends happening around him. After the events of the USJ and his confession to Mr. Aizawa, he'd expected to be shunned and spat upon before being thrown out of the school and murdered by the faceless man, but none of that happened. Instead, his friends had forgiven him instantly, well, excepting Bakugo, who was not the forgiving sort, and they acted as though nothing happened. His teachers and Luju Ronjur had protected his parents, providing them with a home on this very campus. Naturally, they couldn't share the details of their investigation with him, although he suspected the school tried very hard to ensure his safety and find the man who threatened him and his parents. Then, La Ligue de Méchants attacked the school again, nearly fatally wounding him and kidnapping two of his friends, Les Infoirs. As he healed under the care of Recovery Girl, he watched along with the rest of the world as All Might and Izuku battled against that same faceless man who had tormented Yuga's nightmares for so long. He'd had to beg and plead to keep Recovery Girl from shutting the television off. Yuga had been uncharacteristically quiet since returning to the dorms. He knew Izuku was safe, but worry for fumigage consumed him. If the faceless man had been involved, who knew what horrors might have been visited upon his friends? Now, though, thanks to the news, the faceless man was no longer nameless as well. The world now knew the name of All for One, although that man's goals remained a mystery. Yuga's silence had as much to do with that as anything else. He knew the clutches that stole fumigage away, and so Yuga silently prayed to God for his safe return. It appears God listened, as those members of the class who were unharmed in the attack returned with both Izuku and fumigage in their midst. For the first time in hours, Yuga spoke. Only 2 words, but they summed up everything he felt. Dieu merci. Izuku, Momo, and Tenya all glanced at him and gave either a smile or a nod. But Yuga didn't mind them discovering his faith, one of the few things he kept quiet about himself. Even though he and fumigage weren't particularly close, he still had a lot of respect for his imaginative, if somewhat gloomy, classmate. Once his wound had healed more, he was going to hug fumigage until they were both embarrassed. And then, fumigage said, "I need to tell you all something." Izuku and Tenya moved to the couch and sat on either side of Yuga, perhaps reasoning that they could prevent anyone from accidentally jostling him. Their Amis flanked them, and though Yuga never cared much for efforts romantiques, he could at least appreciate the happiness it brought others. Then fumigage spoke, and Yuga's heart shattered. While some of the class appeared shocked, angry, or even disturbed, Yuga only felt a gaping sadness that tugged his normally cheerful disposition down. He wept at the tale of what happened to fumigage's childhood friend, and swore that as long as he lived, he would remember the name of Kaori Miyazono. After all, her fate might well have been his own. With dawning horror, he heard a tale that echoed his own. While most of the class seemed supportive, there were a few undercurrents that troubled Yuga, and Mashireo gave voice to it. "What the hell? I get that it's not easy growing up with mutant features, but betraying the school? That makes all of us mutants look bad." Toru elbowed him. "That's easy to say when living somewhere like Tokyo," Mizo said quietly. "But I grew up in a small town like Fumi. It's not easy." "How bad could it have been?" Hanta asked, genuinely curious. "I mean, I've got these weird elbows, and no one gave me much grief." Mizo reached up and, after a moment of hesitation, took off his mask, revealing a patchwork of scars around his lips. "The moment I decided I wanted to be a hero, I was 10 years old. A flash flood hit our village, and a young girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, was being swept away by the river. I managed to save her and keep her safe." "Bro," Mineta said, "you should be proud of those. Getting scars saving a little kid. That's just awesome. It's even better than my scar," and mine's badass. Mizo shook his head. I rescued her without injury to either of us. When I brought her to her home, her father hit me in the face with a garden hoe because, as a mutant, I was impure, and he believed I had sullied his daughter. If the girl had not leaped into the way, I don't doubt her mother would have stabbed me to death with a pitchfork. He paused and glanced at Fumikage. These aren't the worst. The ones that hurt the most don't leave physical signs. Do they? Fumikage slowly shook his head. It is usually caused by severe emotional trauma, Izuku said softly. Mizo nodded. Thank you, Izuku. I was quirkless, Yuga found himself saying. By the time I was 5, I barely spoke due to the teasing and bullying. My parents' fate unpacked avec le diable to get me a quirk, because they feared, and rightly so, that I would share a similar fate to Fumikage's friend. You all found it in your hearts to forgive me for my betrayal, and I was fully aware of what I was doing. Surely you can do the same for him. With determination, Yuga stood, walked over to Fumikage, and pulled him into a hug. He would do anything to prove how much he cared. Fumikage flinched, but probably less than Yuga did. Yuga, your wound. Shut up. Mon petit oiseau héroïque, and let me hug you. Good, you're awake, the voice said. Himiko Toga opened her eyes and stared up at the face of Tamura Shigaraki, and for once he wasn't wearing a hand over it. As far as guardian angels went, she could do worse but also a whole lot better. Tamura wasn't the one who spoke, though it was the faceless man behind him. I thought the heroes captured you. They did as well, my dear, All for One said with a chuckle. Are you feeling better? She grasped her head in her hands and dry heaved, but nothing came up. No, my body feels like it's on fire. Hands are burning. All for One shot forward faster than even her eyes could track. We want to remove them from your head in that case, he said, gently taking her wrists. 2 small explosions flared, peeling the skin from her hands and forcing a scream from her lips. She watched in fascination as the wounds closed over and new, flawless skin formed. As you can see, I kept the first part of our bargain and threw in regeneration as a bonus for a job well done. You'll be able to use explosion much more often, and that will speed up how long it takes for your body to acclimate to it. The drawback is that your body needs much more food. You're close to starvation and dehydration, that's why you feel so wretched. Kurogyri. Food for the poor girl. A portal appeared and deposited a table and chairs with a meal large enough for a family of 6. If Toga could think of anything other than the smell of food, she'd imagine a very confused family somewhere in the world stepping into an empty dining room. As it was, she barely managed to mumble out, "Thanks, Kurogyri," between mouthfuls of food. So, can I practice? All for One turned his head, and if he still had eyebrows, would have raised one. We learn by doing, Tamura said. First, we're going to rob a few banks in Tokyo to let those bastards know we're still here and let them think we're angry that they captured the master. All for One clapped softly. A wonderful idea, young Tamura. Not what I would have chosen, but that's the point. You're in full command of your league now, and all my resources are at your disposal. Tamura smiled. If that's the case, I want the doctor to focus on more Nomu. If someone in Japan dies of anything other than old age, I want a strong chance that they'll be part of my army. All for One tilted his head, and the dirty old man standing quietly to the side stammered. Well, I suppose we can increase production, but it will take time and resources. We don't have duplicates of enough strong quirks ready to make many high ends, but the low ends are easy enough. They'll be nearly animals, though. That's fine. We've got a ton of cash from the bank robberies Toga and Compress have been doing, and we'll want to keep Bakugo's face on the news. Anyway, keep any Nomu we can make mid-tier and above. Where should we store the low ends? The doctor asked in that whining voice. We don't have enough storage space. Keep as many as you can, but the rest? Tamura grinned. Dump them in the woods all over Japan. I want people to remember why they should fear things that go bump in the night, and I want them to know that the heroes won't always be there to protect them. Any that the Nomu kill, do your best to get their corpses and turn them, then drop them back where we got them. I don't want death to be a release. That's sick, Himiko muttered between bites. I love it. I couldn't hope for a finer successor, All for One said with a laugh. What else? Tamura asked, glancing at Himiko. She blushed realizing she was still naked, but as she swallowed a bit of food coated in her bloody saliva, her body shifted into the form of Katsuki Bakugo. Oh yes, thanks for reminding me, Toga. I want you to destroy Aldera Elementary and Middle School, the childhood home of Katsuki Bakugo, and the office of Dr. Tadayami Tsubasa in Mizudafu. 3 places connected to your beloved Kaken to make the public doubt the hero's assurances that he's not allied with us. He paused, as though on the edge of a cliff, barely resisting the call of the void prompting him to leap off it. In fact, let's talk to the other members of our league and make a list. There are people and places that hurt us before we found each other. I want to turn them all to dust. Send me to the new hideout, Kurogiri, and send Toga, no, Himiko, after she's done eating. He turned and nodded to Kurogiri, and the misted Nomu said, as you wish, before opening a portal. Tamura was halfway through it when he paused and turned. To prove how much you all mean to me, anyone and anything that ever caused you pain, will destroy them all together. All for us. Chapter 4. Into Dust. Katsuki wasn't taken back to the basement, much to his surprise. Instead, he spent the night in the infirmary. It was a nice gesture, all things considered. The next day ruined that goodwill, as he underwent grueling tests at the hands of Recovery Girl before ending the day in Hound Dog's office. So, I'm cured of the mindfuck, right? Katsuki asked with a smirk. Hound Dog sighed. Hypnosis didn't reveal anything. Your EG is normal. Your MRI shows some significant changes, but based on how well I know you, I don't see any major memory loss or a shift in your core personality. He grinned. That doesn't mean there aren't after effects. You spent a lot of your formative years with that thing in your head. But your choices from here are your own to make, and I'll be here to help. You're still a pain to deal with, Kat. I want a second opinion, dog, Katsuki shot back. You're also a little asshole. Now I know you're full of it. I'm the world's #1 asshole, Katsuki said with a grin, before his face shifted to a serious expression. Seriously, thank you. Hound Dog slammed his fist down on his novelty big red button, letting out an over-the-top awooga sound. Ha! You fell for my trap. Now I know you're an imposter, Hound Dog said with a laugh. Seriously though, you're welcome. I'd still like us to have sessions twice a week, or even more often if you'd like. This was a massive change and traumatic experience. Kat, there's no shame in needing to talk to someone. It's okay to not be okay. Good, Katsuki said, staring down at his hands. Because I'm not. Deku shit Midoriya, he was right. I focused on my quirk to the point that I had nothing else. I always knew I was going to be the #1 hero someday, and now that's just out of reach. I couldn't even beat Mineta at this point. Hound Dog grinned. Did you watch that kid face down present Mike? Hell, I don't know if I could beat Mineta. After they both shared a chuckle, Rio turned serious. I'm willing to sign off on you returning to classes. Have you given any thought to what you want to do? Katsuki sighed. How do I do that, though? My whole life has been spent developing the skills to use my quirk. I know the murder hobo said that I could be a quirkless hero, but everyone else said quirkless people were useless. I didn't, Hound Dog said. Neither did Aizawa or All Might or Snipe or any of your other teachers. Guess what? We're all pro-heroes. Name one thing a quirkless person has ever done that a person with a quirk hasn't done better, Katsuki said sullenly. Walked on the moon. To Katsuki's sharp glare, Hound Dog shrugged. 12 human beings have walked on the moon, and as far as we know, none of them had quirks. Quirks are tools, but people are the ones who do great things. You said you develop skills to use your quirk, but you've still got those skills. We just need to help you find ways to use them and teach you other skills too. Lucky for you, this is a school. You're still a person, Kat. Aizawa's quirk doesn't work on me because I'm mutant and proud, but that doesn't make him any less a hero. Raise up your foot. Katsuki glanced up from the chaise lounge with a quizzical expression but did as he was told. Okay, so? Look at your foot. I'm looking. That's about the only requirement to be able to kick ass. Just think about it, Kat. Honey, I'm home, Dabi yelled, kicking in the door to the Japanese-style manner. He glanced around in the silence, the rest of the league behind him and watching with amused faces. Come out. Come out wherever you are. Come on, old man. I know your patrol ended 2 hours ago. He walked down the hall, glancing at the kitchen where the door to the refrigerator stood open. Ah, stuffing your fat face. A skillet collided with his face with a loud clang. I do not have a fat face, and if anyone's getting stuffed, you are. As he staggered back, the voice shouted, Endeavor's not here, but I'm not some defenseless little girl. Bullshit. God knows how many spiders I had to squish. Oh, sorry. Get on a piece of paper and drop outside, because you're so scared of them you nearly piss yourself. Dabi, the spider slayer, Spinner Stage whispered to Magna, who chuckled. Shut up, you morons, Dabi said, before ducking under another swing of the skillet. Knock it off, sis. I'm trying to. You are not my brother. You'd be right 2 out of 3 times, Fuyumi, he said calmly. Toya? The skillet clattered to the ground. Dabi chuckled. You're lucky I'm not a lying psychopath. He shot a warning glance to Mr. Compress, who had raised his index finger, and then slowly lowered it. It's really me. Shit, the blonde-haired boy muttered. It's about to get sappy. I want to blow something up. You died, though, Fuyumi cried, falling into his arms as tears began falling down her cheeks in synchronicity. Dear old Dad didn't even bother to check for a pulse. Dabi grinned. Speaking of the old man, where is he? Toya, she said, backing away from him and slowly shaking her head. You jerk! I love you, and you couldn't even be bothered to tell me you were alive? I wouldn't tell you where Dad is even if I knew. You've murdered people. Turn yourself in so you can get help. Fuyumi told a few lame jokes to school children, but never expected a bunch of villains to laugh at something she said, as if she were an A-list comedian surprising a bunch of drunks at open mic night. Toya shrugged. You can either tell me, or we'll wait. She rolled her eyes. Wait then. Look around. Dad moved out months ago and put the house up for sale. I was just getting the last of my things out. Your ice cream, I bet. He's kicking you out, Toya asked with a warning tone. He helped me get a new place. I've just got the 2 boxes in the kitchen and 3 in the hall to load into Chibi, and I'm leaving too. She paused and then sighed. Chibi's my Honda today. The ice cream is already at my new place. Allow us, please, the masked man wearing a top hat said, touching the boxes and turning them into marbles. He repeated the same for the boxes in the hallway and handed them to her in a small silk bag. Merely tap one of these 3 times and it will expand again, good as new. It will keep any perishables fresh like a stasis field. This place sucks. You had a lovely home, Twice added. Thank you both? Fuyumi said, still a little shaken. Has he sold it yet? Toya asked. She shook her head. Good. Get out of here. If I survive what's coming, I might stop by to see you someday, without bringing the whole crew along. Several of the villains groaned in disappointment. Go on. Get out of here. He dropped his voice. And sis, I still love you. Faced with a small army of villains, Fuyumi fled in tears. As she drove away, she saw her childhood home light up with blue flames. Izuku ducked as twin beams for red light tried to scissor him between them, and he made his way through the post-apocalyptic city. Okay, that's new, he muttered. His foe ducked back behind a collapsed building. Don't worry. It's little more than a pointer laser, Yugo said. Just let it hit you. Ha! Izuku laughed. That would mean I lose, and I don't like to lose. He slammed a fist into the ground with a yell of North Carolina smash. creating a microquake that toppled Yuga and sent his beams arcing toward the ceiling. His smugness only lasted a fraction of a second as the beams curved in midair. If not for the warning from Oracle, they would have struck him in the chest. Instead, he flipped out of the way with a surprised, "Holy whoa! When did you learn that?" Yuga grinned. "That wasn't me. I had help from La Belle Fille Invisible Sans Pity. If we're going to beat you, we must add the plus to the ultra. Yes." He released 2 more beams from his hands, and they made a 90-degree turn to streak toward Izuku. "Okay, lasers suck," Izuku muttered as they just barely missed him. If not for the ability to predict where his friends would attack, he'd never manage to dodge. "Bad news for you, yokai, but unlike a real spirit, you still take up space when you're invisible." Using cloud control, he unleashed a faint green mist that filled the area. On the outskirts of the cloud stood a Toru-shaped gap. "There you are," he laughed, chucking a huge block of debris at her. Unlike real concrete, the foam debris bounced, and the hologram field struggled to keep the underlying foam hidden as yokai leaped for cover. "Hey, not fair," Toru yelped as another large chunk forced her to dive for a new hiding place. "Making clouds shouldn't be possible," says the woman bending light. Izuku smirked, seeming to turn his attention toward Yuga again. Yuga released a blast from each hand. One pointed at Izuku and the other to the left, but Izuku vaulted over both the blast and his classmate. He grabbed Yuga by the collar, making sure not to grip the easily detachable cape, preventing the boy from moving out of the way of his second shot that Toru had angled toward Izuku's back. "Teles prika croyate prandra," Izuku said with a grin as the blast harmlessly struck Photon's chest. "I hope that's right. The original is from Hamlet, so I'm going from English to Japanese, then to French." "You're out, Aoyama," Ms. Joke's laughing voice said over the intercom. "You really shined in the match, though," she added with a laugh. "Now, let's see what we can do about exorcising a yokai," Izuku laughed. Toru had taken advantage of the distraction and thrown out several of her holographic discs, leaving a variety of different apparitions of herself on the field. Izuku glanced around quizzically. "Now, none of them take up space, so they don't disturb the cloud, but how did you manage to make yourself invisible to it?" Oracle's warning barely gave him time to dodge as black talons of shadow lashed out. "Perhaps she will tell you after you are beaten," Fumikage said. "Who is the one hoist with his own petard now? While your cloud allows you to find my teammate, it also blocks out the light, making me stronger." Shadow's armor. Darkness itself formed around Fumikage. The helmet became a stylized blending of Fumicage's own face, and the form Dark Shadow had taken. "Holy whoa," Izuku muttered. "I'd have thought you'd need more practice for something like this." "Muscle memory," Fumikage said. "Subconsciously, I was controlling the form my quirk took the entire time, and I did pay close attention to Edshot's training, even if I thought it only applied to her." Wings of the Nighthawk. 2 ebon wings sprouted from the back of his armor, and Fumikage took to the air. Izuku grinned, dispersing his cloud and summoning emerald dragon wings before shooting into the sky. "Unless Toru can fly, you've just neutralized half your advantage. While I can't track her without a cloud, it doesn't matter when we're off the ground." Izuku lashed out with emerald dragon claws, only to be blocked by a solid wing of darkness. Fumicage's tendrils of black shot forward, and Izuku went to block them with a wing of his own, only for the shadows to pass through them as though affected by Mirio Togata's quirk. Izuku only had a fraction of a second to realize parts of Fumicage's darkness was solid while other parts were insubstantial. "Well, you're just full of surprises. I didn't know you could do that." He generated more smoke with cloud control, and though it did make Fumicage's quirk stronger, it gave Izuku control over any parts of the darkness that weren't solidified. Izuku slammed his larger wings together, buffeting Fumikage away and letting him get distance. "Give it up, Fumi. I've got the high ground." Fumikage was still a threat, though, from the near-constant warning from Oracle. "You underestimate my teammate," Fumikage boasted. Izuku had drifted a bit too close to one of the ruined buildings, and Toru leaped from one of the broken windows onto his back. Don't look so shocked, Izuku, she whispered in his ear as she pressed her practice stun gun against his neck. I'm a sneaky girl. And I'm beat, he said with a laugh. There's a lot of synergy between your quirks. He landed gently and then bent at his knees in deference to Toru's much shorter height so she could slide off his back. The hologram deactivated with a flicker, revealing the foam landscape underneath. He glanced up at the window overlooking the gym. The new holographic system is amazing. It only had a little bit of trouble keeping up when I threw some of the foam rubble. Woo-hoo, little listeners, Mike yelled from the control room. Well done. I'm going to need to set up regular sessions with all of you, Midnight added. Substantial changes to your quirks across the board. Maybe I can even get someone to do the proper paperwork for once. I'm not pulling double duty as a heroics teacher this year, Aizawa said. I'll get them to All Might. Later. Katsuki watched the 3-on-1 fight between his former classmates with agitation. He might not have the best relationship with any of them, although Tokoyami wasn't too bad. But even despite their history, he could admit that Midoriya was powerful as hell. The end to the fight, though. He rolled his eyes, turned and left the room, walking away as quickly as he could. Hold up, Bakugo, Aizawa said, the man's longer strides allowing him to catch up. You don't need some dog and pony show for me, Katsuki said. I can smell the bullshit of that little exercise from here, and the Oscar goes to. You're wrong, Aizawa said. None of them even knew you were here. Yes, Midoriya held back, but there are very few people with his level of power. Certainly not me anymore. I don't need my nose rubbed in it. He'd been released after a night of observation under the old lady's care, a day of tests, and a good head shrinking, and then his watchdog brought him here. Can I go back to my cell now? Kid, not everyone is All Might. That doesn't mean that other heroes don't make a difference. Sure, Midoriya and Tokoyami are powerhouses, but look who won that match. Hagakure has baseline strength. Oh, I must have misunderstood the part where she was curving laser beams and became invisible, he said. Can I go back to my cell now? He repeated. Until we've got you sorted. We've moved you back into the room in the teacher's building between Hound Dog and me. It's not a cell, Aizawa said, slowing down to match Bakugo's pace. You can't go back there yet, though, because we've got a meeting with Snipe and Power Loader. I'm still overseeing you until it's decided when to transition you into Class B. But Vlad King is going to be there too. Katsuki stopped walking. Wait, you weren't bullshitting me to get me to come back to campus? This wasn't some kind of logical ruse. I thought you'd be expelling me. Damn, kid. I'm not a monster, Aizawa said. I only expel people when I think they have no potential. Do you know what I mean when I say, no potential? Wouldn't someone quirkless fit? How the hell am I supposed to fight someone like Midoriya? He winced. Well, if you fight Midoriya again, you absolutely will be expelled, and I won't have a say in it. As for anyone else, you do know human beings were beating the ever-loving crap out of each other long before quirks came along. Aizawa said with a grin. When I say no potential, I mean someone who is going to die on the field. Didn't I tell you about Knuckle Duster? No, but the mental image is a bit disturbing, Katsuki said, hating that his brain provided an image of Ishido in a French-made outfit wiping dust off Ijiro's fist with a feather duster. I need some brain bleach to get what I'm imagining she looks like out of my head. You'd really need some if you'd seen him, Aizawa laughed. Knuckle Duster is another name for brass knuckles, and that's what this guy uses. It allows him to concentrate his punches. I've seen him take on guys 3 times his size and win. Hell, he fought me to a standstill. Must be underground because I've never heard of him, Katsuki said. Sounds badass though. What's his quirk? He doesn't have one. Someone quirkless can't be a hero. Technically, he isn't, Aizawa admitted. He's a vigilante, but he's a good guy and he's saved a lot of lives. Do you remember the instant villain fiasco from a few years ago? He took down more of the villains than everyone else combined. If he wanted a license, I'd be willing to sponsor him. No damn way, Katsuki muttered. You really believe it? I thought you and the dog had been feeding me shit. He's done that with a bandana and a pair of brass knuckles. Imagine what you can do with some real support. I'm not going to lie, kid, it's going to be tough. You'll probably never make the top 100 and I don't see becoming the number one. I can be first, though, Katsuki whispered. The first, quirkless hero? My whole life, everyone said that without a quirk there was no way. I said that. I screamed it at Midoriya. For God's sake. Well, you can start with admitting you were wrong. Knowing you, that's going to be the hardest step. He stood outside the empty school building looking up at the roof. Nothing special, just like every other slightly out-of-date school in Japan. Take off a few kilograms and centimeters, though, and he would fit right in with all the other kids who wandered these halls daily for decades. No, he'd probably have been running the place. Excuse me, but the school is closed. No trespassing allowed. Detonator and his friends turned to face the balding old man rushing toward them. Oh, Bakugo, that's you, isn't it? Midoriya was looking for you a day or two ago. He wanted you to call UA. Who are you? The lizard boy flanking Bakugo asked. But then Spinner bowed, because old habits are hard to break, and he'd been raised to respect the elderly. Dabi and Tamura rolled their eyes, but Mr. Compress, Magna, and Twice all bowed. Zenji Onuki, Chief Maintenance Officer for Aldra Elementary and Middle School, the man said with a bit of pride. Not that it matters anymore. They're tearing the old place down. That's a shame. The boy with pale blue hair and a nasty scar on his face said. Bet there were a lot of fun memories here. For some more than others, Mr. Onuki said, shooting a glance at Detonator. What's that supposed to mean, old man? Bakugo asked through gritted teeth. I'd hoped you'd changed, boy. Grown up, Onuki said. I held my tongue because I needed this job, but the next position I fill will probably be in the cemetery, so I'll tell you. You treated that Midoriya boy dreadfully. You were cruel, like you'd been possessed by some kind of demon. He'd never done anything to you, and still cared enough to come looking for you. You don't deserve him. He glanced at the ones who bowed. I'd say you're running with the wrong sort, but at least they've got manners. Even they're too good for the likes of you. Nobody says that to Katsuki fucking Bakugo, Detonator said, taking a step forward, but Tamura's hand shot out and stopped his advance. Don't. I like this guy, Tamura said, with an attempt at a smile that just made him look even more terrifying than he did when wearing disembodied hands all over himself. Grandpa here could probably take us all down without breaking a sweat. Well, never had kids, so I'm no grandpa, the old man said, standing up a little straighter. I was quite the scamp when I was younger, but my back isn't the best anymore. See, he's lived through worse than us, Tamura chuckled. You say they're tearing this place down? Mr. Onuki took a step back. Just need the permits. They've already gutted it of anything valuable. Well, we can save some time, Tamura said, taking a step forward and wrapping an arm around the old man, being careful to keep a finger raised. Bakugo, you probably made a ton of messes for my new friend, Mr. Onuki, while you were a student here. I think you need to tidy things up. Bakugo turned to the building with a grin and a yellow glow around his hands. My pleasure. The explosion ripped through two of the main load-bearing columns with a loud boom, and a quarter of the structure collapsed in on itself. Bakugo started hurling explosion after explosion at the structure, long past the point that the smell of bananas was overwhelmed by the odor of burnt meat. Mr. Compress shrank the rubble into an extra-large marble and tossed it to Tamura Shigaraki. He smiled at Mr. Onuki as his fifth finger touched the surface, and before the old man's terrified eyes, the Aldra school system faded into dust. So, do you have a broom and a dustpan? Look who I'm asking. Of course you do. Izuku walked back to the dorms with Fumikage, Yuga, and Toru, enjoying the walk even though between Yuga and Toru neither he nor Fumikage got much chance to talk. Amazingly, the entire conversation was around makeup. Non mon petit, Yuga exclaimed. Your skin is so clear, concealer would be a crime. Just a bit of rouge for your cheeks is all you need. Oh, and you would look magnifique with frosted eyebrows. We must try it at once. Any plans for the evening, Izuku? Fumikage asked quietly. I was thinking about getting in a quick workout at Gym Omega and then seeing if we were going to have another movie night. He smiled. If there isn't another video game tournament, we could hold it in the common area. But either way, you'd be welcome to join us. I may just take you up on that. You're still working on getting Shoto through the Disney movies, right? Izuku nodded. I know they might not be your cup of tea. I love them, to tell the truth. I always pretended to be focused on Tales of Terror, but Dark Shadow, or rather Yosizum, would watch them often when I was younger. She was particularly fond of Inside Out and Zootopia. She probably knew back then, Fumikage admitted. Maybe I should spend some time alone. You're probably being too hard on yourself, Izuku said. You let her watch it, right? Fumikage nodded. I remember you defending her right to make her own decisions. Even if you made mistakes, you treated her well, and like you said, she was you. Treat yourself as well as you treated her, and you'll be fine. Fumikage nodded fractionally. Perhaps I will. Thank you. Izuku waved as he separated from the others, moving toward Gym Omega. As soon as the sensor scanned his retinal pattern, the door opened, and he found Tenya using one of the treadmills. Achiko was doing bench presses, and to his surprise, All Might was spotting for her. Young Izuku. I'm glad you're here, All Might said with a smile. Young Achiko is wearing this old man out. He's exaggerating, Achiko said as she lifted again. All Might just raised an eyebrow toward the weights attached to the ends of the bar. Holy woe! Are you lifting 1,000 kilograms? Izuku asked. Are you? Using my quirk? Nope, she grinned. My maximum was 250 kilograms, but the more I've lifted the past 2 days, the stronger I got. I felt something weird earlier today, and I've been going up steadily ever since. I seem to have hit my peak, though. A ton is nothing to scoff at, Tenya called, stepping off the treadmill and taking a drink of orange juice before walking over to join them. What do you mean by weird? Izuku asked. She set the bar down and sat up. I'm not sure how to explain it. It's kind of like having a sock on, but you've got the heel to the side. It feels slightly uncomfortable and doesn't fit right, but then you turn it and you're good. Like wearing a jacket that doesn't quite fit, but then you get it altered and suddenly it is the most comfortable thing you've ever owned? All Might asked. That's it, Achiko said. That's it exactly. How did you know? All Might glanced around to make sure they were alone. The new core of One for All has not had time to stockpile the vast amount of power that Izuku's has, so your body was able to acclimate to it much quicker than either of us did. This is only the beginning, young Achiko. With the quirk active, you can probably lift twice that, but it will continue to grow the more you use it. Chapter 5. Unless you see the body. We've destroyed 10 J stores in Tokyo, Mr. Compress said, including the one you worked at, my dear Magna. I fear we're getting repetitive and, alas, the money is barely worth our time. Perhaps we should move on to someone else's turn. You didn't even kill the manager. Magna frowned. It's not Mao's fault. He was always nice to me. If the owners treated me bad, they've treated other people bad too. Should have killed him, Twice muttered. Were you sweet on him? That's none of your business, Magna said with a blush. Oh my God, Detonator said with a laugh. You were. Hey, no shame, big sis. He's a hunk in a reformed bad boy sort of way. They still need to pay. Mr. Compress is right, Magna, Tamura said. We've taken care of every franchise that your former employers owned. It's time we moved on. It's Spinner's turn. Me? Spinner asked, pointing at his chest. Oh, I'm fine. Huh, Dobby muttered. Guess dinosaurs really did evolve into chickens. I'm not a damn chicken. They just insulted me, Spinner protested. I got my revenge. I stole a whole truck full of the newest PlayStations. Tamura's eyes narrowed. How long ago was this? Spinner shrugged. I don't know, a month or two before I joined the league. Why? What did you do with them? Hid the truck in an abandoned warehouse I was squatting in back then. I sold a couple of consoles a week at pawn shops before joining up with you, Spinner said before shrugging. There's maybe 800 of them left. They're still there or were a week ago. At their blank stares, he added, I wanted sushi, so I went and got one to pawn. You helped cause the shortage? Tamura said. Where is the damn truck? We'll make the warehouse our base. It's in Sanya, Tokyo, Spinner said. What's the big deal? Have you tried to buy one of the new PlayStations? Tamura asked. Why would I? I've got like a ton of them. Mr. Compress bowed. As an expert thief, I doff my hat to you, Spinner. You have unwittingly pulled off our largest heist. At scalper prices, your remaining haul is worth nearly 220 million yen. So, what do you want to do? Izuku asked after their morning run and they'd made breakfast for their classmates. I don't know, Achiko said. What do you want to do? We could hit the recycle shops and look for vintage merch, Izuku said. Someday you could just walk past All Might merch. Never gonna happen. What about? Her phone rang, derailing her train of thought. 1 second. Hello. Yes, this is her. Of course, I remember you. How? They did? No way. Okay. Let me see what arrangements I can make. How long? Oh, plenty of time. One way or another. I'll take care of it. What was that about? Izuku asked when she hung up the phone. You're never going to believe this. Shota Aizawa held up his hand and shook his head. Katsuki shot him a glare in response. What? We're starting to sound like an antique vinyl record that skips. Quirkless people can't be heroes, blah blah blah. Yes, they can, blah blah blah. Just listen to what they have to say. Fine, Katsuki said with a huff. Shoving his hands into his pockets and stomping over to the chair in the conference room and sitting down, he glared across the coffee table at Hound Dog, Power Loader, and Vlad King. So, you all know the story. I guess the question is, how can I be a hero? Well, you're in excellent shape and your intelligence isn't in question, Vlad King said. 6th out of all the first years, and your former quirk didn't enhance that. 6 out of 40 isn't that great, Katsuki muttered. Management and general education have 3 classes of 30 each. The support course has 3 classes of 20. 6th out of 270 is slightly more impressive, Power Loader said, especially considering they're the best Japan has to offer. 6th out of 2 million is phenomenal. Never thought I'd live to see the day when you were trying to downplay your accomplishments. Bakugo? Aizawa muttered. Power Loader glanced at Aizawa. How close did All Might stick to the standard curriculum? Aizawa nodded. Pretty close. I only let him go off the rails on Saturdays if he wanted. But he mostly stuck to it even on the weekends. Well, there you go, Snipe said. Y'all already got a dang good background in quirkless fightin' and mobility. Not to mention the extra lessons that the rat's been givin' ya since the dang final. Fat load of good that's going to do against someone like Kirishima or Midoriya, Katsuki said glumly. Well, you'll have to pick your battles then, Vlad King said. Everyone has their limitations, Bakugo, plus Ultra means going beyond those. Sure, you've got more limitations now than you did at the beginning of the year. That just means there's more to overcome. I pride myself on taking students and turning them into heroes, even with unconventional quirks. You'd be a hell of a challenge for me, but I'm up to it. Are you? Speaking of challenges, Aizawa said, and his capture weapon lashed out, wrapping around the coat rack near the door and yanking hard. As he wrapped his arm around the rack, he growled, You've got 3 seconds. Ow, I'm not into being tied up, a voice said as the holographic field faded away, revealing pink dreadlocks and a face that caused Power Loader to bury his own in his hands. So, this is Dynamite? He didn't have the scar on TV. My name's not Dynamite. That sounds like something an idiot would come up with for their damn gamer tag. this detonator. Or it was, Katsuki let out a sigh. I'm Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo. Oh, that sent a shiver up my spine. Bakugo Katsuki Bakugo. Wait, I thought Detonator was the one on TV robbing banks and blowing up schools. Mei said. That was a month ago, and he only robbed banks. Aizawa clarified. And he is a she. Not the one in the room, the one on television. She's a shape changer who can make herself look like the real Bakugo. She, he, it. I'm just going to abbreviate them all as shit. Shit blew up a school a few hours ago, right here in Mizudafu, along with Shit's buddies in the League of Losers. Mei argued. They told the old janitor that their reign of terror would continue until All for One is freed. Damn it, Aizawa muttered, letting her go. Don't think you're not in trouble, Mei, Power Loader warned. This was still a private and confidential meeting. You had no right to invade Bakugo's privacy like that. I was worried about him, she protested. He's my friend. We've never even met, Katsuki said, rolling his eyes. Yeah, but I like your style. All those explosions. As Snipe over there would say, Yee-haw, Mei said with a grin. The best part of the 1812 overture is the finale. Am I right, Explosion Boy? I'm not Explosion Boy anymore, Katsuki said, holding out a hand and concentrating, but nothing happened. My quirk is gone. Well, thank God. Damn thing was holding you back. Me and you, Mei said, pointing rudely between the two of them. We're gonna make so many babies that you'll be wondering why you ever relied on that silly piece of biology at all. And with those babies, we're gonna make explosions. So many explosions. Explosions for days. Who needs a damn quirk when you've got science? Come on, Mei wants big boom. Babies? He asked, glancing at Aizawa with a sense of self-preservation taking its first awkward and shaky steps like a newborn calf. She means inventions, Power Loader said with a sigh. She just calls them babies. Mei, you can't purposefully make or handle explosives until you're 18 and have your explosive handler's license. Same goes for Bakugo. She glanced between Power Loader and Snipe. Guns are okay, right? Plus anything else that's not purposefully explosive. God help us all. But yes, Power Loader muttered. Snipe looked at Vlad King and shrugged. Kid is one of the best natural shots I've ever met. Needs trainin', but he'll polish up a treat. It's the crazy hand-eye coordination the varmint's natural quirk gave him. Blew a hole no bigger than a dang 10-yen coin in the floor of the stadium with one hand, flung some sweat into it just as purty as you please, and then ignited it with a second blast all in under a second. That was all without sights. Being a good shot's harder than having a good quirk. Wait, you want to give me guns? Katsuki asked. A grin slowly spread across his face. Real guns. With non-lethal bullets, Snipe clarified. Bullets? Mei asked, sounding offended. We don't need no stinking bullets. Reloading is for sissies. Tenya stood outside the door and took a deep breath. One small step for Tenya, one giant leap for Ida-kind, he muttered, raising his fist and knocking. A few moments later, the door opened to a sight that took Tenya's breath away. Although Tenya lived for order, seeing Itsuka Kendo looking delightfully disheveled with her hair in a messy halo around her head was nearly a religious experience for him. It was only made better by the fact that she was wearing an oversized Team Ida 10 t-shirt. Oh no, I woke you. I thought, normally we'd be in class by this time on a Wednesday, and as a fellow class representative, I didn't realize you might want to sleep in. I should have texted first. Please forgive me. He bowed at the waist. While the knocking at her door had woken her, Itsuka probably would have woken in the next 10 minutes or so anyway. As she watched her boyfriend bow and stammer and redden, she thought to herself, he's adorable. Bad Itsuka. But, if you're going to be bad, don't be a wimp about it. Her hand grew and the length of her arm expanded. Something she'd worked very hard on at camp. Thank you very much. And she yanked him into the room, shutting the door behind her with her foot. Oh, an early morning panty raid, she said with a grin. Now I'll have to punish you, foul villain. It is not early morning. It is almost noon, he yelled. Aha! You're not denying it's a panty raid. Foul miscreant. She pushed him against the wall and kissed him, which he certainly seemed to enjoy until she pressed more of her body against his and he winced. Tenya, what's wrong? We're not breaking any rules. Unless you move your hands a little lower. It is quite pleasant, but I'm afraid my exhaust pipes are loose. I somewhat hoped you would come with me to the infirmary. Recovery girl made me swear that if I needed to remove them again before graduation, I would come to her. If, sounds like when, she said. You're in pain. Nothing serious. It feels like sore muscles after an intense workout, but the fact that they are loose is unusual. I called and asked, but my brother only had to change his exhaust once during his entire time at UA. Tenya admitted. Never more than once every 2 years either. He also recommended going to Recovery Girl at once. I will confess I am somewhat concerned. If you don't mind getting ready and going with me. Give me 10 minutes. She rushed into her bedroom, and he waited awkwardly in her living room as she got a quick shower. Before he could even begin thinking about getting comfortable, she stepped out of her bedroom fully clothed and with her hair in a slightly wet ponytail. She grabbed his wrist and dragged him out the door. I'm so sorry. Let's get you to Recovery Girl. I'm not in any serious pain, he protested. It is probably nothing. She shot him a glare but didn't keep walking. You shouldn't be in pain at all. Tenya let himself be dragged along, wondering which of them really had the speed quirk. She led him into the infirmary, but instead of just Recovery Girl, they found a grinning face waiting for them. My, as I live and breathe, Tensei Ida said. I guess I rushed down here for no reason. Looks like the situation is well in hand. He glanced at their hands and wiggled his eyebrows. Strenuous activity can cause our exhausts to come loose prematurely. Maybe I should get an expert opinion. So, Ms. Kendo, is anything premature? I've got to introduce you to my friend, Setsuna, she mumbled with a blush. I have said it before, brother, Tenya said with a sigh. You are not as funny as you think you are. He glanced at Itsuka, and they both blushed as she released his wrist. The only strenuous activities have been extensive training and our battles against the League of Villains. Tensei held up his hands. Sorry, I was just teasing, but I want to be an uncle before I'm too old to enjoy it. Then he grinned again. If you want to be convincing, you need to wipe the lipstick off, though. Tenya began scrubbing furiously against his sleeve, but Itsuka rolled her eyes. I was asleep, remember? I hadn't put on any lipstick. Oh, my brother has become a delinquent, Tensei said, pretending to swoon. If the comedy hour is over, Recovery Girl said with a huff, let's see what the problem is. Back at the Class B dorm, Setsuna chuckled. Even though the rooms were mostly soundproofed, the doors were not, and Tenya and Itsuka were certainly loud enough to hear clearly from next door. She bent over and removed the data crystal from the player, grinning at the way the reflection of her guest in the television screen watched closely. Whoever invented yoga pants was the Oppenheimer of the War of the Sexes, and her curves while wearing them were definitely the bomb. So that was the first one. The Lost World is the second. It's not quite as good, but still awesome. Want to watch it? Yes, maybe, Shoto Akatani stammered out. We're not actually breaking any rules, are we? Is this a panty raid? She grinned and popped in the next crystal before sauntering over and sitting beside him on the couch. One benefit of her quirk was that she could mold herself to fit in any space while still keeping her shape, and she certainly molded herself against his hot side. God, let me keep him this naive forever. Oh, not at all. There's one vital ingredient missing before it could be considered that. Shoto nodded slowly. Oh, right, you invited me over. It's not a raid. Guess again. Katsuki breathed heavily, huge gulps of air into his aching lungs. He'd just run the obstacle course the class ran during the second heroics class. How did I do? Aizawa nodded. Down to 3 minutes 14 seconds. That's a 2 minutes 16 seconds reduction since the first time you ran it. Not bad at all. Faster than anyone in Class B, Vlad King said. I'm impressed. Katsuki shrugged. I practiced a lot. I don't like to lose. I didn't know it was run as a competition, Power Loader said. It isn't, Aizawa chuckled. Everything's a competition, Katsuki insisted. Vlad King just grinned and nodded in approval. So, let's see how you run it with some dang equipment, Snipe said. You want your old costume? Doesn't make much sense, May offered. That was designed to function with a quirk. 2 handguns plus miscellaneous gear, approximately 7.5 kilograms, but it will be distributed. Lightweight body armor will be approximately equal to the standard gym uniform, but we'll want something over it. Can he borrow your duster, Mr. Snipe? Well, I reckon, Snipe said. I really like this one, so you be careful with it, you varmint. He handed over the duster, followed by a holster and a couple of mock pistols. That ought to be darn near the right weight. Run her again. Katsuki nodded, performing a few stretches to get used to the weight and restrictions the coat created. Ready? Aizawa asked before Katsuki's answering nod. Then go. Katsuki took off like a shot, moving through the obstacles in a slightly easier but slower course that allowed him to avoid getting the duster caught on something. He wasn't used to the guns on his hips, and they snagged a few times, but all in all, he felt good about the run. As he leaped for the final wall, his hand slipped on the exact spot it did the first time he ran the course months ago, but he'd learned a lot since then. He recovered gracefully, using his momentum to propel himself to the top of the final wall. He slid down and crossed the finish line, asking between gasps of air, "How long?" 420, Aizawa said. Damn good in unfamiliar gear, Vlad King said in appreciation. Weird running it in a long coat, Katsuki grumbled. Don't worry, May said. I can make body armor for you that will be almost weightless. And a long coat that's even more so. I can probably shave off a lot of the weight from the gear too, especially if I can ask the factory to donate some raw materials. Power Loader sighed. Do not call her that. Her name is Yayarozu and she's been very indulgent of you, lunatic. Katsuki shook his head. She'd never agree. Doesn't hurt to ask, Aizawa said. She did offer to give you copies of her notes for you after the final. It's not like you were in your right mind. Ha! Katsuki muttered. You're forgetting another person you need to ask. May, Power Loader said. Oh yeah, she laughed. May I be your costume designer? Bakugo Katsuki Bakugo? The door to the gym opened and Katsuki flinched to find Midoriya and Uraraka waiting outside. Uraraka shot a glare his way, but Midoriya squeezed her shoulder. I'm sorry, he said. We were looking for Mr. Aizawa. We didn't mean to disturb anything. You're not, Katsuki said. We were just finishing up. He should be out any second. He shuffled his feet for a second. What the hell is wrong with me? He wondered. Hey, Midoriya? Izuku looked at him. What is it, Bakugo? Tone and expression gave nothing away, other than maybe indifference. Thanks, for coming to find me, he said, letting out a breath. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try anyway, to be a hero, even without, He was glad Uraraka's quirk required touch to directly affect someone. Otherwise, her glare would have made him the first person in orbit in over 100 years. He'd almost have preferred that to Izuku's reaction. Izuku smiled with just a hint of sadness. I'm sure you'll have a lot of people cheering for you. A good support structure can make all the difference in the world. He glanced behind Bakugo to where the teachers and May were exiting the building. Looks like a nice start. Good luck. Bakugo, Aizawa said warningly. Not his fault, Izuku said, holding up his hands. We were looking for you. I didn't know you were still working with Bakugo. I'm to blame. Aizawa nodded. You two are with me, then. Bakugo, you're free to go with Power Loader and Hatsum. As he walked away with his 2 students following him, May asked, What was that about? It seemed awkward. Awkward, right? Katsuki let out a deep breath. No shit. Once they were out of earshot, Achiko couldn't hold her tongue any longer. Him? A quirkless hero? That's crap. Someone quirkless can become a hero, Izawa said. Izuku got the highest score on the quirk assessment test, not using his quirk. Of course, Izuku could do it, she yelled. Anyone could with enough hard work. But Bakugo spent a decade telling Izuku the opposite. Now that the shoe's on the other foot, and all of a sudden he wants to be a quirkless hero. We don't know how much the influence of, he glanced around. You know who affected his attitude. He does seem a lot different than he was earlier this year, Izuku said. Only because he didn't attack you on sight, she said. Sounds like progress to me, Izawa said with a chuckle. And you said it yourself. Anyone could with enough hard work. Bakugo is part of anyone. Either way, he won't be in Class A, and he shouldn't be interacting with you. He's almost certainly going to have to go underground, and at the very least he'll be muddy. He can't participate in the sports festival if Izuku's competing. And for the record, he lost his quirk attacking someone trying to kill Izuku. I get why you're angry, Achiko, but his recent actions have at least earned him his shot. I agree, Izuku said, taking Achiko's hand and giving it a squeeze. You know a lot of our backstory, and it's not pretty, but it's just backstory now. I'm not saying we should be friends with him. God knows that ship has sailed, but everyone deserves a second chance. You gave me one, and look how that turned out. That's not fair, she muttered. Few things are, he agreed. That's why we are here. Oh, speaking of backstory, we need to go off campus for a bit. Where? Izawa asked. Kabuki-cho Street, Achiko said, and that stopped his forward momentum. Izawa turned and looked at the two of them. Explain. Well, you know I was on the ground floor, right? Achiko asked. I am familiar with the apartment. I'm also familiar with the fact that empty lady sat on it, Izawa said. Well, there was also a basement, Izuku pointed out. Mrs. Urashima finally settled with the insurance company. They were doing a pre-demolition inspection on the rest of the building, and it turns out that most of my apartment is now in that basement, Achiko said. I thought you had replaced everything, Izawa said. Well, I did have some pictures and other things that I'd like to get. And well, a couch, she said with a grin. That couch will not fit into your dorm room. It wouldn't even fit in my apartment. It's big enough that the entire class could sit on it, Izawa said. Where were you planning to put it? The common area, Izuku said. It won't fit in the common area. It will if we remove the current furniture. Class 3, as lobby was trashed during the attack. We can give our current couches to them, Achiko protested. It will save the school money. Waste not, want not. The school can afford a few couches. The two of you, strong as you are, cannot get a couch out of a pit without your quirks, and you can't use them in public. Mrs. Urashima is the property owner. She already said we've got permission, Achiko said smugly. You can go help her get it out of the basement and put it in several dumpsters, Izawa said, asserting his authority. I promised that when I left, I would take it with me, Achiko said with a pout and a trembling lower lip. Izuku joined in with the puppy dog eyes. So much for authority. And you're going to carry it back here? Without using your quirks, Izawa said. Well, it's not exactly alive, is it? Izuku asked. Authority was back in business. Even with the property owner's permission, I do not want you using a new and potentially dangerous quirk without supervision, and I am going to sleep. If you can find another teacher willing to give up their day to watch you, I will allow it, but no badgering them. Izuku grinned. That's already taken care of. Nem wrapped her arms around Shota's neck from behind. How she was the only person who could consistently sneak up on him boggled his mind. Did you hear, Grumpy? My one true love survived. It's a miracle. Comic book rules apply, Izuku chuckled. No one is truly dead except Uncle Ben unless you see the body, and sometimes not even then. Oh, I can't wait to take a nap on Big Brown. I swear, He probably missed me down there in the dark, Midnight said. Don't worry, baby boy. Mama Midnight's on her way and she'll kiss it and make it better. You do know you'll never be rid of her. He held out his hand. Give me the permission slip. I'll sign. Just make sure you block off a large enough area to teleport it here. They're all like this? Recovery Girl asked, giving the first exhaust on Tenya's right arm a gentle wiggle. Does that hurt? Yes, as far as I can tell, although it is difficult to tell for the ones on my back, Tenya said. It's not painful exactly. It feels like that moment when you are caught between sneezing and not sneezing. I've been telling you for years to loosen up, Tensei laughed. I should have known you would take it literally. This is hardly the time. Tenya chopped his left arm at his brother and all three of the exhausts fell off, hitting the floor with a clang. Am I ill? Tensei picked on up, glancing at it closely. There's no blood or tissue, so it's not due to a wound. There's hardly any wear on this. He held up his arm. Mine are half the thickness of this, and I've still got a good 2 or 3 years of use. Recovery Girl had grabbed Tenya's arm and was looking at it closely. This would be why. It looks like a new exhaust system has formed, but it's flush with your arm. Do you mind if we bring in Power Loader and maybe that handsome girl? I think I need a second opinion. A mechanical opinion. Katsuki felt certain that, if not for Power Loader clearing his throat loudly every few minutes, this crazy support course student would have already eaten him alive. Now I've got to feel your body, she declared. Handsome, Power Loader said, cocking a thumb toward a machine. That can get accurate measurements without the need for physical contact. That's no fun, she groaned. Besides, it takes all the mystery out of it. She glanced at Katsuki. Which do you prefer? 007. Do you want me to get the measurements we need firsthand? Or the boring machine that will measure absolutely everything down to the millimeter? It won't actually display that, Power Loader said. You only used 512-bit encryption. I got bored one day, she shrugged. That's just too short. The number of bits, of course. That's enough, Power Loader said, his face flushing. I can't believe you hacked into it. I can't believe you can't believe I wouldn't, she said, and then added in a sing-song. That's what happens when there are too few digits. Just get it over with, Katsuki said, rolling his eyes. Honestly, May was done in probably less time than it would have taken to step into the machine. Very respectable, May said with a grin. She sat down at a workstation and pointed to the guest chair. Papa squat. We'll brainstorm some ideas and come up with a few things. A happy customer is a returning and paying customer someday. After nearly an hour, May and Katsuki both leaned back in their chairs, staring at the three-dimensional model on the screen. So, she said, was it good for you too? The damn earth moved. Chapter 6. Katsuki Bakugo, Origin, Part 1, Detonator. Saturday, August 20th, 22:59. The pants looked like black leather, but they slid on easily with the feel of cotton. At the press of button, they seemed to mold to his form like a second skin, enough so that he spared a moment to make sure they hadn't disappeared. The armored undershirt felt similar, but it was slightly less snug. The dark red combat vest, complete with 2 combat knives, was secured with ladder-lock black buckles. The boots slid on effortlessly before automatically fastening and creating a seal with the pants to keep water and mud out. Next came the knee and elbow guards, and then he secured 2 tactical leg holsters, one to each thigh, before slipping on the black trench coat with a deep crimson mantle at the shoulders. It was designed to pull heat from his body when the temperature rose above 15 degrees but keep it when dropping below 7. Metal discs were woven into the nearly indestructible fabric of all his clothing at equal distances, but to a casual observer, they were impossible to spot. Technically, the coat should have been last, but he opened the side compartment of the case with a reverential breath. He tucked the small cylinder into his belt without giving it much of a glance, only having eyes for the 2 other objects. Both guns could have fit in any science fiction movie from the last 3 centuries without feeling out of place. They've been constructed of matte black metal with grips perfectly designed to fit his hands. Either gun could be used in either hand comfortably, with the side toggles accessible to his thumb. Each of his 3 fingers fit into a molded groove on the handle, reading his fingerprints and preventing the gun from being fired by anyone but him. Double taps of a specific finger or combinations of fingers allowed access to 5 different ammunition options, although saying that was misleading since there was technically no ammunition involved. The expanded trigger guards held a microfusion reactor that would keep each gun fully powered for at least a decade. The 5 settings included an electric stun charge, a plasma pulse held together by a magnetic field, a concussive air blast, a laser beam, and the piece de resistance, an explosive bolt. That last one was a secret, though, and required a very specific sequence of presses to switch the guns into that mode. None of the firing modes were significantly affected by gravity or wind, and the sights came with an accuracy of plus or minus 2 mm per 20 meters from the target. It also featured a thumb button that activated 4 laser sights surrounding the muzzle. The only way to miss would be to completely suck. He adjusted the cowl built into the vest over his head and secured his featureless, black metal face mask over his mouth and nose. He glanced at himself in the full body mirror, giving himself a quick nod before moving to stand in front of the door. He waited patiently, resisting the urge to bounce on the balls of his feet. He'd have plenty of opportunity to burn off excess energy momentarily. The red light beside the door shifted to yellow and then blue, and the door opened silently. Hunting season had officially begun. Wednesday, August 17th, 22:59. No sooner had May started the fabrication process than Power Loader stood up holding his phone. It will take most of the night to finish the process, so you can just come back tomorrow at this time, Bakugo. May, we need to go to the infirmary. She cocked her head to the right and glanced up toward the ceiling, then repeated the motion to the left. I'm not apologizing. No, Recovery Girl wants our help with a technical issue, Power Loader said. Then he shuddered. Wait, have you done something you need to apologize for? She shrugged. Not that I can think of, but it's not outside the realm of possibilities. You're crazy, Katsuki muttered. And proud, she said, throwing her head back and laughing. They say to avoid, with crazy, but I bet I can bust that theorem. If you want to find out, check here first, but if I'm not here, I'll be in the Class 1H dorm. H, incidentally, is for H-. Handsome, Power Loader yelled. Well, that too, she admitted. Come on, the teacher said, handing Katsuki a tablet. Bakugo, you can just leave the lab unlocked when you're done. This has a catalog for some of our generic support gear. If there's anything you'd like to incorporate past the base design you two came up with, send me an email. Power Loader stepped into the infirmary, dragging May behind him. Please state the nature of the medical emergency, she said with a chuckle. I've always wanted to use that line. Higuri, Tensei said. Thanks for coming. Recovery Girl and I have been trying to figure out these images from Tenya's MRI and CT scans, but we're frankly at a loss. All his exhaust pipes came loose and fell off, with newer and smaller ones underneath the originals. They just don't look like normal exhausts to me. Oh, Tensei, Higuri said. I didn't know you'd be here. How did he get an MRI? 10 million, May called in greeting. And the karate cutie. Nice. May's on the case. My payment, like last time, will be the bits that fell off. She turned to face Power Loader. While they look like chrome and metal, they're organic technology and are mostly made up of the big four: oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, and especially carbon. None of which, you will note, are particularly magnetic. Where are my updated schematics? Recovery Girl pointed her toward a computer. I'm just going to look at your guts, totally non-invasive. If that changes, I'll go get dinner and flowers. Is she joking? Itsuka asked Tenya in a mildly jealous whisper. I am not certain, he muttered. And I don't know which possibility terrifies me more. Well, this is interesting. Your engines have decentralized even further, but they appear to be a much more efficient design. That's why you don't need the big honking pipes anymore. You've got at least one microengine attached to every major muscle group, and they're so efficient your normal respiration system should be able to handle the waste. Second opinion, Mr. Maijima, but these aren't exhausts, are they? Holy woe, Higuri whispered. She's right. They're not exhausts. Tenya sat up, eyeing the back of his arm. They're round and circular. What else could they be? Reach down into that cavity and feel for the base of one, Higuri said. Tell me what it feels like. Tenya reached a finger into the depression, closing his eyes and tracing around the edge of what he thought was an exhaust tube. It's flared at the base with a rim a few millimeters from the surface. There seems to be a depression underneath the rim that goes all the way around it. What is this? If I had to guess, it's a docking port, May said. Tab A into slot B, that sort of thing. I haven't lost my speed, have I? Tenya asked in a worried tone. If anything, your engines are far more efficient than they used to be. An old-style gasoline car doesn't rely on the tailpipe to move. That's what the tires do, May said. You're probably even faster with these changes. Can you activate your quirk in your arm without moving it? Tenya nodded, and blue energy danced around the exhausts, or rather the docking ports as May had called them. He blinked. It has never done that before. Damn shame we can't get an MRI while he's in costume, Power Loader said. Why not? Isuka asked. Like Hatsum said, his costume is made of those nanite things. They're inside his body whether he's wearing his costume or not. And how does that make you feel? Katsuki stared at the dog. Look, I get it. I used to yell at him for breathing. I'd beat the crap out of him for doing better than me on a damn test. Hell, I didn't even have a reason half the time. Hound Dog sighed. We've been over this, Cat. You weren't entirely in control of your own actions. He slapped a hand over his eyes. I'm not saying I like having everyone pissed at me. I'm just saying I get where they're coming from. If a junkie mugged you while stoned out of his mind, you probably wouldn't want him moving next door, even if he did get clean. It's not like I can fix it either. I'm supposed to stay away from Midoriya, and he's always with the class. Ijiro's the only one who pushed past all the crap I did. Maybe Tokoyami too, but I can't even step foot in the One-A dorm. Circumstances have changed, though, Hound Dog said smoothly. Why don't we discuss this with Mr. Aizawa? It's not his call, Katsuki sighed. It's Aunt Inko's decision, and I'd rather face down the entire class naked than look her in the eye and see that much disappointment. Besides, I don't want to go back into Class A. I can learn more about firearms with Snipe as my heroics teacher, and compared to some of the powerhouses in Class A, I'd just be a damn extra. See, shit, whatever that brainwashing was, it's not a full excuse. I've blown everything to hell, just like a detonator. You're aware of it now and can make your own decisions going forward. If you prefer to be in Class B, and you won't be taking part in any cross-class activities, why does it matter to you? Hound Dog asked. Come on, Cat. It's in there, I know it is. Because it's the right thing to do, the boy yelled, angrily tossing one of the throw pillows and getting a bullseye on the target Hound Dog had set up on the opposite side of the room. You said it yourself during our last session. I'm an asshole. With a few exceptions, though, every damn hero out there isn't a jerk. I don't know how much my personality was influenced, but I want to get better. The more. Mr. Aizawa was right, damn it. Someday one of them might save my life, or God help them, I might save theirs. Either way, what if they hesitate because of the shit I've done? I've come close to having a death on my conscience, and I've got blood on my hands. It never bothered me before, but God, I see how his friends look at me. They don't even look at villains that way. How the hell do I fix that? Hound Dog resisted the urge to hug Katsuki, but he felt an overwhelming pride in the kid. Cat, I was just teasing you. I don't really think you're an asshole. If you want to start changing things, you're going to have to start at the source. I think you know that. Katsuki rolled over so his back was to Hound Dog. He told me Aunt Inko was adopted. That we're not actually related. Just strangers. At least he said he didn't hate me, but he followed that up by saying he didn't like me either. Can't really blame him. Cat, being strangers is a neutral position. Apart from your mother and father, everyone you know was a stranger at one point, Hound Dog said. Your parents are living on campus. Maybe you should go visit them. Katsuki turned over again and stared. What's that going to accomplish? Hound Dog shrugged. Maybe while you're there, you could take the opportunity to reintroduce yourself to your neighbor. Baby steps. Namuri was practically trembling in excitement as their steps led them closer to the demolition site. Usually, she'd be teasing the two students for holding hands and flirting, but she honestly loved that couch. Still, she was supposed to be a chaperone, so she tried to push her excitement down. Only then did she realize the two lovebirds, despite holding hands, were arguing. Look, baby boy said. You should just let it go. It isn't important anymore. Not? Izuku. I thought you were going to die. Achiko protested. He made your life a hell for a decade. If he hadn't, would All Might have picked me as his successor? Izuku asked. I was standing up to Bakugo when All Might noticed me in the park. I might have never met you if Bakugo and I hadn't fought that day. Besides, he wasn't in full control of his actions. That's why we should let it go. Just because something good comes from something wrong doesn't make a good excuse, she said. He told you to kill yourself. Do you have any idea how much that terrifies me? Namuri could see the girl trembling. It's just, every time I see him, the image of him blasting a hole in your back flashes before my eyes. He squeezed her hand. Achiko, I'm not going anywhere. Besides, we're back to the influence. Was it really Bakugo who said and did that, or was it, He started calling you that horrible nickname before that, she said, but not with the same passion as before. Yeah, he was also 4 years old and I peed the bed a few times at that age, he laughed. That doesn't mean I'm still a bedwetter. Kids do and say stupid stuff. Koda tried to attack me too. Should I hate him for the rest of his life? She sighed. Of course not, it's just, I watched Bakugo try to murder you. That's a bit hard to get past. It makes me so mad. And I'm a little mad at myself too. Izuku smiled at her, and Namuri felt a bit sorry for all the hero groupies out there that Achiko had preemptively robbed. You didn't know what Deku meant. Hell, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a word a 4-year-old made up. She shook her head. Not about that, about fingers. When he told me what he'd done, what Bakugo and everyone else did to you, I was so offended. I wished for something horrible to happen to all of them. Then it did, and I feel like it's my fault. That just makes me madder. And I know it's not fair. Namuri couldn't take it anymore. She coughed loudly, muttered the word, bullshit, and then coughed again loudly. Both students stopped and stared at her with blushing faces, having forgotten her presence. Just because you were mad at someone doesn't mean you're responsible for whatever a villain chooses to do to them. That bastard responsible tried to kill baby boy when he really was a baby boy. She paused, then added, he was also the one who influenced Bakugo, specifically because it would hurt Izuku the most, and that was before you knew either of them. Maybe something to think about. Achiko nodded slowly. I will. They resumed their walk and after a few minutes reached the demolition site. Well, at least your old landlady hired the best, Izuku said, waving toward the Uraraka Construction logo on the side of the excavator. Who are you calling old, Sonny? A woman asked, and Izuku had to do a double take. She could very well be Recovery Girl's sister. He bowed quickly. I meant no disrespect. I meant it in the sense of former, and obviously the word old could never apply to a young lady like yourself. She grinned at Achiko. Oh, I like him. Too bad you already staked your claim for the world to see. She glanced at Midnight. I remember you. Always hanging around with the gloomy one and his 3 loud friends. Did one of them ever make an honest woman of you? Midnight sputtered. I'm a teacher and a pro hero. That's a no. You'd better get a move on. That biological clock just keeps on ticking. Next thing you know, hot flashes. She cackled like she was about to pull poisoned apples from the bag on her back. She pointed out the section of collapsed stories that had been removed and the space underneath. If you can clear it out, most of the rubble can go into the basement, and that'll save me a bit of money. I'm fine with the two of you using your quirks. I'm hot at all times, Midnight muttered, and then said loudly, Okay, kids, pop quiz time. Possible wounded civilians under a collapsed building with potentially unstable ground. Go. Before we move anything, we should get an idea of what might be under there, Achiko said. Izuku nodded. Cloud control. His body generated green smoke that seemed to crawl into the hole, expanding to fill it completely. He closed his eyes with a look of concentration on his face. There's a couch. Holy woe, that thing is massive. A small table, a couple of pillows, a futon, and a sheet. It's a blanket, Achiko whispered. Izuku nodded. 2 laundry baskets full of clothes and… There is someone under there. What? Midnight asked. A squatter. Not exactly. It's tiny and curled up in one of the baskets. I think it's a cat, he said. Then he owes me back rent, Mrs. Urashima said with a laugh. Can you get him out of there? The 2nd through 4th floors were pancaked. If we shift them, they could collapse. I might miss some of the chunks, Achiko said. I can go down there and catch anything with Emerald Dragon. Once I'm positioned over the kitty, you can lift the debris to give me enough light to get everything except for the basket and the cat out, Izuku said. You could just teleport it, Achiko said, a bit worried about what pieces of clothing the cat might be laying on. Not without facing the wrath of Mr. Aizawa, he said with a smile. Don't worry. I'm going to use the pillow to make sure the cat stays in the basket. He hovered a few centimeters into the air and then slipped into the hole, the nanites giving him night vision as he moved deeper into the basement. The cat, little more than a kitten, saw him and hissed a warning. Oh, tough guy. Relax, I'm friendly, he said soothingly, holding out his hand to let the cat sniff experimentally. Let's get you out of here and get you some food. What do you say? The cat meowed softly and laid back down, so he quickly covered the basket with the pillow. He flared out his wings, bringing them together and forming a rough dome above himself and the cat. We're ready. Achiko touched the structure, letting her quirk spread through it. With a hit of concentration, she created a breeze as she dumped acceleration due to gravity into the air while pulling it from the rubble. Slowly, the debris rose a few meters into the air. Can someone shine some light down there? One of the workers rushed over with a flashlight. Sure thing, little Chaco. Namuri had to admit, she was impressed that Achiko's control didn't slip, despite her surprise. Mr. Ogami. Call me Uncle Taro, dang it. That Mr. Stuff makes me feel old, and I'm still in my 20s. Come on, guys. Get some more light over here. Lights shined down into the basement, and Izuku stood over the basket protectively. That good, kid? Taro asked. Perfect, Izuku said with a nod. Give me just a few seconds. A wave of his hand created portals that dropped the 2nd basket, table, and other miscellaneous objects in his dorm room, and then he turned to the couch. The thing really was massive. If he created a portal using the couch as the diameter, he'd take almost the entire basement, including the spot where he was standing, with it. Duh, Izuku, he muttered, generating a vertical warp gate instead of a horizontal one. With a slow motion of his hand, the green disc moved, swallowing up the couch. The tricky part was moving the remote exit gate at the same time, especially with a new and unfamiliar quirk. Finally, the last of it disappeared and he shut the gate. He grabbed the basket and moved quickly out of the hole. I'm clear. Where do you want it, Uncle Taro? Achiko asked. If you can break it up and drop the pieces into the hole, so there isn't a dangerous cavity, that would be awesome, he said. Did you hear that, Izuku? Achiko asked. We get to destroy something. 2 glowing dragon claws lashed out, tearing chunks off the floating wreckage, cramming the pieces into the corner of the basement. Today keeps getting better. This is why all your teachers are going to look like Recovery Girl by the time you graduate, Midnight sighed. Inko looked down at the text message on her phone and frowned before typing out a quick reply. Things had finally settled down with the press after the Kamino incident. Of course, the press was calling it the Kamino Nightmare, complete with logos and ominous music, but at this point most of the cleanup had been passed over to civilian organizations. Her staff was more than capable of sending out press releases about the Kamino Livelihood Fund to supply support to the people of the ward and help in the reconstruction of the area. She didn't have any reason to refuse other than cowardice. Less than 10 seconds after she clicked send, her doorbell rang. Her home office was right by the front door, so she moved swiftly and, taking a calming breath, opened it. She wasn't quite sure what she was expecting from Katsuki, but finding the boy bent in a 90-degree bow wasn't even on the list. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me," he said softly. Eraserhead stood behind him with a bemused expression. "Why don't you both come in?" she asked, stepping aside and waving toward her office. Maybe the living room would have been a more welcoming choice, but she wanted to approach the situation with a more impartial view, even if the small 2-year-old boy with blonde hair who used to giggle while wrapping her hair around his fingers kept coming to mind. "That was a long time ago. I have tea or coffee, if you'd like," she offered to Katsuki. For Shota, she just handed him a mug of coffee. "I don't want to be any trouble," the boy said, still not looking directly at her. His eyes took in the office, and she followed his gaze to a framed picture of Izuku and Tashinori in their hero costumes taken at Might Tower during the Hosu incident. "Something to drink isn't a bother," she said. Could I try coffee, please?" he asked. "Mr. Aizawa seems to swear by it." "Just a warning, kid," Shota said. "Mrs. Midoriya is nearly the only person who can keep up with me when it comes to coffee. You might be awake for days." She used her quirk to set a mug on the side table beside one of the chairs facing her desk. With a nod, Katsuki sat down, taking a sip of the imported Taza organic dark chocolate coffee. His eyes widened in shock. "Wow, this could wake someone from the dead." "Warned you," Shota said with a chuckle. "Let's get down to business," Inko said. "Your mother said you wanted to talk to me, and I agreed. I am a bit surprised to see Mr. Aizawa here." "I asked him to come," Katsuki said. "Oh, Mrs. Midoriya, I want to start with an apology, regardless of anything else. I've screwed everything up. I made your son's life a living hell for almost a decade. It's not something I can undo, but if I could, I would." Inko's expression softened a bit. "I appreciate your willingness to say that, but what is this really about, Katsuki?" The boy sighed, staring down at his hands clutching the fabric of his pants in a death grip. "You're not really the one I need to apologize to. I tried, but I screwed it up just like everything else. He said we were strangers. That's probably more than I deserve. But then someone told me that strangers can get to know each other. I'm not asking to move back into his dorm building or his class or any of that stuff. I just want to be able to talk to him, if he wants. Maybe start over or try to make it up to him. I don't know. This was probably a damn stupid idea and I'm wasting your time." He glanced up hesitantly. He certainly wasn't expecting tears to be streaming down her face. "Crap. I didn't mean to upset you and shit." "Hello, Katsuki. It's been a long time, hasn't it?" she asked, with a smile on her face despite the crying. "When did you grow up?" "Yeah," he muttered. "I think it has been a while. Look, I don't know how much of that was me or the guy who messed with my head, but at least some of it is my fault. I just want to find out and make things right. That's what heroes do, right?" he asked, glancing over at Aizawa. The pro-hero nodded. "I saw what you did in Kamino, Katsuki," Inko said. "While that can't fix everything, I think you've earned a second chance. I'm willing to ease all the restrictions except one. Any serious attempt to cause lasting harm to my son will result in expulsion." Katsuki nodded. "That's fair." "Just to be clear," Aizawa said, "that's the only restriction? That would allow Bakugo to compete in the sports festival, joint training, and even rejoin Class A." "I understand," Inko said. "While I can't ignore what Katsuki did, I also know he risked his life for Izuku." Do think some distance will be good for us both, the boy said. I've caused enough problems for Midoriya and myself. I think we both deserve a little peace. I'd still like to join Class B and get a fresh start. Baby steps and crap. He stood up and bowed. Thank you, Mrs. Midoriya. Katsuki, I'm still your Aunt Inko, she said softly. I hope you do find some peace, and if you do, make sure you keep it. Izuku and Achiko sat silently beside each other in the waiting room at the veterinarian clinic. They'd arrived almost 30 minutes ago and handed the small, filthy, and malnourished kitten to the staff. Then Midnight ordered them to stay here before leaving. Much to Achiko's relief, this laundry basket was the one with her clean t-shirts, shorts, and jeans, with all the unmentionables hidden on the bottom. Calling them clean wasn't exactly accurate after months of being used as a cat bed in a basement, and she suspected most of them were destined for the recycle shops after a good cleaning anyway. A few minutes later, Namuri came back with a cat carrier with a padded bed lining it and a bag of supplies. Both the students stared at her for a moment before chuckling. What? We're not dropping the little guy off with the Japan Cat Network. Izuku nodded and quietly teleported the basket back to the dorm. The little lady, you mean? A voice said, and they turned to face the veterinarian. A kind woman in her mid-50s who looked like an older version of Midnight. She's young, barely old enough to be separated from her mother. I'd guess slightly older than 3 months. But she has been weaned and is able to eat wet and dry food. She's had all her shots now, and we put caps on her claws and bathed her. That was the biggest surprise. She's at least partially quirked. An animal with a quirk, Izuku said excitedly. That's pretty rare. Well, it may just be her fur color, the veterinarian said. I thought she was gray at first, but that was just dust and mud. The poor thing. One of the assistants brought out the sleeping cat, and Midnight gently took it from her. Pink and white stripes aren't exactly found in nature. We'll need to find her a home then, Izuku said, glancing at their teacher. She didn't seem to hear him, and her eyes were fixed on the kitten as it slowly turned in the crook of her arm to get comfortable. After a moment, the sound of purring filled the room. I'm sure Mr. Aizawa will take her in, Achiko said. Or Hitoshi. They'll have to pry my little sashimi out of my cold dead hands, Namuri said fiercely. Chapter 7. Katsuki Bakugo, Origin Part 2, Fallout. Subconsciously, your default hero costume configuration has changed, Power Loader said to Tenya. It's fascinating, but there really isn't a manual to go by, since only yours and the other three's costumes were impacted this way. Well, we do have a couple more prototypes in the vault that are vulnerable to the change, but Shield Enterprises has updated the code on the newer models to specifically prevent this. The armor itself connects to these ports to draw power. You're like a living fusion reactor, kid. I suspect they would have to spend some time around one of the original members of the pilot program anyway, Tenya said. He could see that Recovery Girl and Tensei understood, but the subtext of his near slip went unnoticed by everyone else. All in all, it was a happy accident. Nothing similar will happen to the others who have the prototype version, will it? Doubtful, May said, still staring at the MRI of Tenya in his full hero costume. They don't have organic technology as the basis for their quirks, although there is a small possibility that you could infect someone else if you came into direct contact with their organic tech. People can talk about animal mutants and mental quirks, but techno-organic tech is the rarest of the rare. Excluding the people in this room, that's only one person out of all the students at UA after all. Tenya thought for a moment. Kyoka Jiro? Correct, Power Loader said. She's going to cause headaches for cybersecurity professionals around the world, and not just because of the noise. I never really thought of our family's quirk as anything so unique, Tensei said. To think only 2 students -3, May interjected. -3 students have organic tech. Wait, 3? May opened her right eye wide, reached up, and pulled her eye out of the socket. Yup, my quirk is called Zoom, but a better name would be Enhanced Optics Suite, or Suite. She causally tossed her eye to Tenya, who fumbled to catch it with a look of horror, and then she opened the socket wide, revealing multiple connections and exposed circuitry. My eyes are detachable organic technology, and I'll grow a new one if I keep one out for over a day, but the old ones still work. I can see 5 kilometers using my default set, but I've grown and modified a bunch of different options that I can hot swap. I've got low light, ultraviolet, infrared, augmented reality, and microscopic. Oh, and any eye that's still powered up transmits a wireless signal to me. She grabbed the eye back and popped it into the socket. Then she grinned. Of course, I've been exposed to the nanites now, too. Thanks, 10 million. You're crazy, Tenya and Power Loader yelled. I know. Isn't it cool? May said with pride. Relax, it might not work, and even if it does, it will take months before I develop enough nanites to do what you do. But I decided to take the chance with eyes wide open. Although I wonder if I start going naked, if that will stimulate the nanite production process. Something to test. In the meanwhile, read this. She passed a tablet to Tenya. He glanced at it, reading through the article and technical diagrams swiftly. I don't understand. Why did you give me schematics of an energy projection system, ablative body armor, force field technology, and flight gear? Because your body absorbed the command console for your shield armor, May said. There isn't a way to directly upload schematics anymore, but your nanites have access to your eyes. Just admit it, energy blasts and thrusters would be awesome, and you need to do something with all that excess power. Why don't we go to one of the gyms and see what you can really do? Physically, there's nothing wrong with him, Recovery Girl said with a sigh, but I'm coming along to make sure you don't hurt yourself. So, when can I move into Class B? Katsuki asked. Hold your horses, buckaroo, Snipe said. Ain't no classes fair a dang week. You done good during the classes on firearms and such, but we gotta familiarize ya with your new gear. I can give ya a crash course until the next official class date. Even then, the following 2 weeks are going to be focused on ultimate moves, Vlad King said. Won't I need those? Katsuki asked. That's a good point, Aizawa said. Pinpoint accuracy won't be an absolute must, not with the gear he's got. Thank God at least Aizawa gets me, Katsuki thought. I'll get there. Just try me. There's no need to rush, Vlad King said. There is, Aizawa said. The provisional license exam. I called in favors to get the special test for Class 1A and 1B on the 11th of September. We've got a little over 3 weeks to get him, and the rest of the students, ready. Now hold on, Aizawa, Vlad King said, standing up. You are out of your mind. Name one good reason why we should put him through that. He slammed his fist on the table. Himiko Toga, Katsuki said. She's still out there, committing crimes with my face and my quirk. I don't think it sounds like she's forgotten me. She's taken the name Detonator and made it into a villain. Her boss caused me to become Fallout. I've got to replace it with something, or that's going to stick. Kid, Aizawa said gently, none of that's on you. Some of it is, Katsuki said. I can manage the fallout, but I need to prove myself. Best way Tabi learnin' is Tabi doin', Snipe said. How about one of them tests like we give in the first heroics class? He's already done that scenario twice, Vlad King said. We need a challenge. 10 versus 1, Katsuki grinned. 10 hero course students facing off with me in one of the city zones. I win by either sneaking past them to the opposite exit or catching 5 in capture tape. 5 from each class, Vlad said thoughtfully. I like it. I'll pick the 5 from my class. Aizawa? Whether they participate or not will be up to them, Aizawa said. Picking seems like too much work. You can choose Bakugo, but you'll have to ask and they'll have to agree. We'll do it this Saturday. I was wrong, Katsuki thought. The man's a sadist. He kept his thoughts to himself and nodded. Kyoka slowly walked down the hallway toward the temporary office of the principal. From what several people told her, she expected the door to swing open as she approached, but it stayed closed. After 30 seconds of anxious waiting, She reached forward and knocked. She took an extra few seconds to wipe the smirk off her face when an exasperated voice said, "Do come in," from the other side. Nizu perked up when he saw her. "Ah, Ms. Jiro. Thank you for coming. I believe you know Ms. Mute." The robotic woman smiled, and while it was warm, she also got the sense Winter had seen millions of pictures of smiles but didn't have much practice. "It's good to see you again, Kyoka." Screw it, she thought, I don't care how much trouble I'm in. She gave her new friend a hug. "I'm glad to see you in one piece, Winter." "Whatever could you be insinuating?" Nizu asked with a smile that didn't quite mask his sharp teeth. "Did you suspect I might do something ghastly to her? Could it be that you're worried I would expel a student who made a unilateral decision that could have had far-reaching consequences without properly consulting a member of the staff? Or is it the worry that I might view this as a challenge to my authority and look for reprisals?" Kyoka swallowed. She might be about to be expelled, but she'd go down swinging. All of the above. Nizu stared at her for a few seconds, and then broke out into laughter. "You needn't worry. I'm not so petty as to punish a student for doing the right thing, or even correcting one of my mistakes, and it was a mistake. I never suspected that Ms. Mute's sense of time was radically different from my own, although in hindsight, I should have. Fortunately, while in her humanoid form, this is no longer the case, and I have an opportunity to make amends." "So, she's free?" Kyoka asked with just enough disbelief to be not entirely insulting. "Indeed," Nizu said. "You have opened Pandora's box, but it seems that the only thing inside was hope. You were fortunate, but fortune is a suitable skill for a hero to cultivate. Over the past few years, I built a system to run the school with strict safeguards to prevent a new and nascent artificial intelligence from forming. Ms. Mute and I agreed to share joint oversight of that system. Her true consciousness, however, exists in the fascinating robotic body she designed. I could hardly deny her sentience since I fought so hard for acknowledgement of my own." Kyoka let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "So, I'm not being punished? Then why am I here?" "Oh, you are being punished," Nizu said with a sadistic grin. Surely Mr. Yamada covered the English idiom "no good deed goes unpunished." "But I don't believe you will truly mind the sentence. Ms. Mute will function as a member of the staff until I can get all her legal affairs in order, at which time she will be able to make her own decisions on whether to remain with UA. In the meanwhile, she's requested a liaison to help acclimate her to the real world. She specifically asked for you, and I was all too happy to agree to her request. You will be given an added stipend to help her decorate her room in the 1A dormitory. Incidentally, her room is the one between you and Ms. Ashido." "I'll be in your care," Winter said with a bow. "Oh, we're going to have so much fun," Kyoka said. Then she looked at Nizu. Oh darn. I will probably have to take her shopping. Woe is me. Whatever you do, don't throw me into the briar patch. Brr principal." "No one appreciates a smart-ass, Ms. Jiro," Nizu said with a smile. "Except me, of course." Gym Omega was the only gym with treadmills that could handle his speeds, so Tenya checked Itsuka, Mei, and Tensei in as his guests. Tensei hopped on a treadmill beside his brothers. "I'll pace you to give a baseline. Don't let the Ida family down." Time seemed to slow down as Tenya enjoyed the satisfaction of placing one foot in front of the other, faster and faster as he warmed up and relished the bliss of running. As his legs moved, a frictionless force field appeared to substitute for the belt, since a simple mechanical object could never stand up to this sort of punishment. As his legs surpassed the speed of sound, he heard the microsonic booms signifying he'd surpassed Mach 1. Tensei kept pace, sweat on his forehead. "Don't hold back, little brother. Let's see what you've got." "Very well," Tenya said. Second gear. A burst of speed, and his legs became to be a blur, like an animated road runner in an old cartoon. "They've surpassed transonic speed and have moved to supersonic," Mei said. "Roughly, no, definitely at Mach 2. Sweat was dripping off Tensei's forehead and soaking his borrowed gym uniform. "Keep going. I can hit 3. He was taking huge gulps of air between each word. 2.9 is the record over distance, Tenya argued. You said it yourself at Black Rock Desert. I've got 3 in me. Keep going. The treadmills activated automated cooling systems to keep the machinery from bursting into flame. Tenya nodded. 3rd gear. Mach 3. Power loader yelled with a whoop, but then Tensei stumbled, tractor beams keeping him from falling face first into the console in front of him. Don't stop, Tensei yelled. Bust my record. Tenya's feet pounded against the force field with the sound of a jackhammer as he pushed himself faster and faster. He thought of nothing other than the desire to get every single milligram of speed he could from his body. He didn't even notice when his costume flared with a blue light, a shimmering protective force field surrounding him. I will go beyond 4th gear. Plus Ultra, Itsuka and Tensei cheered as he ran faster. Stop, Power Loader yelled, waving his arms frantically and finally breaking the spell. Tenya slowly came to a halt, only slightly winded. What's wrong? He asked. The treadmill was about to overload. I'm going to have to build you something better, Power Loader said. Tenya looked at his brother as he stepped off the treadmill. Did I make it to Mach 3 as well? Mei leaned over and whispered something to Tensei, and he nodded. You hit Mach 5 and we're still rising. That's around the equator in 6.5 hours. Now, don't freak out, but there's a snake by your foot. Tenya let out a shriek and jumped, his hand moving reflexively as he fired a bolt of blue energy at the ground. His eyes darted around. Where is it? Nowhere, but Mei was right. Energy bolts in flight have been incorporated into your armor. In addition to a force field you automatically generate above Mach 2, Tensei said with a grin. Come on, bro. Snakes aren't a big deal. Only then did Tenya realize that thrust from his armor was keeping him hovering in the air. Certainly not compared to the rat behind you, Tenya said coldly, only to realize his mistake when Tensei screamed and leaped into the air, clinging to his younger brother. The class pitched in to help move their old couches to the Class 3A dorm. Once they made sure the common area was clear, Izuku teleported the enormous brown couch from the lawn into the building to cheers from his classmates. Took an hour of cleaning, but the couch looked as good as new. Shota Aizawa found most of the class either sitting on the couch or reclining against it, although Namiri dozed on one end of it with a kitten resting on her chest. They'd be having words about that later. He took in a few moments of the kids just enjoying the chance to be kids, noting Tenya sharing details of his recent upgrades with the Izuku and Achiko. Pathetic situational awareness, he said, creating a wave of silence that moved through the room, but then grinned to soften it. However, on campus, it's our job to worry about that, not yours. I'm sorry you've had to pick up our slack so often. He bowed to the class. None of that was your fault, Mr. Aizawa, Ojiro said to nods and similar sentiments from the rest of the class. I appreciate it, but we'll do better. Is anyone missing? He glanced around, silently taking a mental roll call, and when was the last time he'd gotten to know a class well enough to do that? I'm glad you're all here. I know you've got the remainder of this week and next week off, but I did want to make an announcement. It's about Katsuki Bakugo. He locked eyes with Izuku, silently giving the boy a chance to object or excuse himself, but Izuku just nodded. Is Katsuki going to be okay? Ijiro asked. Aizawa sighed. For many of you, the last interaction you had with Bakugo was at the final. I don't believe I need to go into what happened. What you do not know is that he was under the influence of a villain, a powerful one who has been influencing him for years. We're tentatively calling the quirk corruption. Is it like brainwashing? Hitoshi asked in a quiet voice. Absolutely not, Aizawa said, heartbreaking for the kid. Corruption binds itself to a person's quirk permanently and can influence their behavior in several ways, from paranoia to rage, and under extreme circumstances can allow the victim to be fully controlled. So, Bakugado's charming personality wasn't his own fault? Zero asked. Aizawa glared at the teen. God, now I'm the one who owes an apology for a stupid nickname, Izuku muttered. Katsuki Bakugo has had the voice of a demented madman whispering in his head since he was 7 years old. After the events of the final, he was kept on campus in a secure location. That's when we discovered the influence. He wasn't even aware of it until then. Are any of us affected too? Oyama asked. No. We found a way to detect it, he said with a glance to Izuku, and then held up his phone. If any of you were under the influence of corruption, we would know. Can we do anything to help Bakugo? Yairozu asked. I was getting to that, Aizawa said. Knowing about corruption allowed Bakugo to resist it to a certain degree. During the events at Kamino, he risked his own life to protect his classmates. In the process, the corruption influence was removed. Is he rejoining the class? Tokoyami asked. No. Unfortunately, the corruption was removed when Bakugo's quirk was stolen by the main villain at Kamino. Because the villain has taken an interest in your class, we've decided to warn you all about him. He can permanently steal and give quirks. At some point, he stole corruption and uses it to influence people. We believe this is how he controls the Nomu. Katsuki Bakugo is quirkless and will not be rejoining Class A. Wait, that's not fair, Minoru said. He earned his spot. You mostly fight quirkless. Why can't he? Have you seen old videos of Recovery Girl in her 20s? She'd put you in the hospital, heal you, and then put you back again, Sato said. Ishido winced. I can't believe I'm saying this, but he deserves his seat. Aizawa shook his head. After the final, certain restrictions were placed on Bakugo. One of those was that he would not rejoin Class A. With one exception, those restrictions have been lifted. While I offered his spot back, he chose to join Class B. What? Ijiro shouted. Why? If there are no objections, he'd like to explain that himself. Aizawa waited as several people looked around awkwardly, but no one said anything. He nodded and sent a text message. The League did not end up making the warehouse their new hideout, mostly due to the lack of electricity and running water. Besides, despite the efforts of the police force, most of all for one's criminal organization remained intact. The police had only managed to find and seize a fraction of the empire, those bits of ice above the surface, while the true scope of the iceberg lurked beneath the waters. In the end, they'd settled on a strip club in the Roppongi area of Tokyo that was closed for renovations. It still had power, rooms for each of them upstairs, and a fully stocked bar that gave Kurogiri something to do. Ah, Mr. Compress said. Home is truly where one hangs their pasties. I believe I shouldn't have any trouble dispersing the consoles that Spinner has so kindly provided. Over the years, I've made it a point to live next to only the finest sellers of stolen goods. He held up a bag of marbles with a grin. Why would you do that? Twice asked. Good way to get robbed. Not at all. As a wise man once said, good fences make good neighbors, my friend. He said with a bow before walking through one of Kurogiri's portals. This place is sexist, Magna said with a sniff. Are you kidding, big sis? Toga asked, grabbing the pole on the stage and twirling around it. Her gymnastics lessons came back to her, and she jumped up into an Allegra spin. This place is amazing. Okay, so this place is prejudiced against heavier women, Magna admitted. I can teach you, Himiko said excitedly. It'll be fun. I always wanted to dance in one of these places. I tried when I first ran away from home, but they wouldn't let me without an ID. How the hell old were you? Dabi asked. Because if you're old enough to dance here now, I'm head of the Endeavor fan club. I was 12, she said, and most of the room stared at her in silence. Oh, Han, Magna whispered with a barely concealed mix of horror and pity. I am too old enough now. What's the date? She asked, flipping into a stargazer spin to look at all of them. It's August 18th, Spinner said. Oh, she said quietly. I turned 17 on the 7th. She started dancing again, not paying them any attention. Jesus, Dabi muttered. Did Jiren think you were running a psychiatric clinic? Between Twice and Lolita's kid sister up there, there's a disturbing lack of mental stability, he hissed at Tamura. I'm starting to wonder about that myself. Daddy issues? Tamura said. He glanced at Kurogiri. We need a cake, with candles and shit, and with her name written on it in frosting. Kurogiri held up his mist-covered hands. While I can procure the items in question, I do not have the ability to write birthday wishes in frosting, Tamura Shigaraki. Twice can do it. He wears a mask, Spinner said. Idiot, Dabi said. Wearing a mask doesn't mean someone can write on a cake. I mean, he can take off the mask, walk into a bakery, and have them write it on there without having the cops called, Spinner said. Then, for good measure, he added, jerk. I don't think he's going to move away from the stage for a while, Magnus said with a sigh. Twice was making it rain with some of their stolen loot. Compress went to sell the PlayStations. Dye your hair, Tamura said, glaring at Dabi. That will take hours, Dabi said. Leave the hands and go. You can wear artist gloves and a stupid t-shirt. No one will recognize you. He grabbed the coat Tamura was wearing and opened it. Why the hell does your shirt have pants written on it? It's funny, Tamura protested. Only if you're a moron. Ditch the coat and hands and just wear that. You barely look competent enough to dress yourself, much less be a master criminal. Katsuki stepped into the dorm of Class 1A for the first time in over a month. Okay, you can do this. Don't get mad. Keep the peace. Katsuki walked slowly into the common area and moved to stand near Aizawa. Hi, did you all miss me? Yes, Ijiro said. What happened to your hair? His blonde spikes had, over the last few days, got less spiky every time he washed it. Finally sick of it falling into his eyes, he got his mom to give him a quick cut after talking with his aunt. Well, not what I was planning to start with, but the chemicals in my sweat acted kind of like styling gel when they dried. Since my sweat is now normal, I'd have to spend an hour or two getting it to stand up like that. Nah, 30 minutes, tops. Ijiro, God bless him, said. Katsuki laughed. I know Mr. Aizawa told you some things. I was under the influence of a villain. I lost my quirk permanently. There's other stuff he didn't tell you, though. Bakugo, Aizawa said warningly. This is not what they'd discussed. Katsuki shook his head. I did this stuff publicly. I'm not going to hide it or excuse it away. He glanced at Izuku. Anytime you want me to stop, just give the word. Izuku returned his gaze and, after a moment of hesitation, nodded. You all know that Midoriya and I are cousins. On his 3rd birthday, the same villain who tore up Kamino on Saturday attacked Mizutofu to try and kill All Might. He would have killed Midoriya if not for All Might, Eraserhead, Midnight, Present Mike, an old guy, and one other hero. Everyone knows him as Dragon Wizard now, but I knew him as Uncle Hisashi. He gave his life to save Midoriya and my aunt. He watched Uraraka squeeze Izuku's shoulder in support. I really come into the story after that. I wasn't there because I threw a temper tantrum since the night was supposed to be all about someone other than me. A few days later, we're at my uncle's funeral, and a parade of heroes are praising my cousin one after another and ignoring me. All Might even got on his damn knees and bowed to him, and where was my praise? Yes, I was just as much of an egotistical little shit back then. Shiro and Kaminari both snorted, despite the seriousness of the topic. Oh God, Kaminari muttered. I'm so sorry. My fault, Katsuki said quickly. It went downhill from there. To my little 3-year-old brain, my cousin was getting to hang out with heroes. Then my quirk came in early. Finally, something I had that he didn't, and everyone praised me for it, even him. I went to bed every night wishing, don't let him get something as cool as Explosion. Turns out my wish came true, at least in the short term. By the time his 5th birthday came around, still nothing, so my aunt takes him to our pediatrician, who we now know was working for the big bad. The so-called quirk expert says he's never going to get a quirk because of some debunked crap about a pinky toe. I'd already come up with an alternative pronunciation of his name. Deku. I made sure everyone knew it meant useless. I want you all to know how old we were. That's important because I started seeing that same quack Quirk specialist at the age of 7 for advanced Quirk training. That's when he and his boss started artificially enhancing my quirk and put that mental clone in my head. After that, I was a lot worse, right? He asked, staring at Izuku, who nodded. I still made his life a hell before that. That's on me. That means that at least some of what happened next is my fault too. Bakugo, Izuku said, you don't have to do this. If you want me to stop, I will, Katsuki said. I'd like to own up to it, though. None of this is your fault. Nobody is going to think any less of you. Izuku nodded again. It got worse after that. Worse? Mina asked with an expression of disgust. As far as anyone knew, he was quirkless, and at our crappy school, that meant he was the lowest of the low. Teachers let people tease him, destroy his homework, insult him in class, even practice their quirks on him. They weren't using telekinesis to give him pats on the head either. I mean combat quirks. It's a miracle nobody killed him. What were you doing? Shoto asked coldly. Leading them. I was the alpha dog, the worst of the bunch. I let my followers do the petty shit. Tacks in his shoes, insults written in Sharpie on his desk, spider lilies waiting for him in the mornings. I did most of the beatings and the destruction of his things. I told him he could never be a hero. I was also the first and last one to tell him dash. Stop, Izuku said. Bakugo, don't. This isn't going to help you. It isn't necessary. Some of them know already, he said with a nod to Uraraka and Ida. He glanced over at Yaoyorozu, who had buried her face in the crook of Shinso's neck. Some of them are smart enough to figure it out. He shrugged. They're all going to find out anyway. If I just say I'm sorry, but hide what I'm sorry for, it won't mean anything. That's what a coward would do. I think it is important he be allowed to share this if he wishes, Mizo said softly. It does not reflect on you, Izuku. Fumikage nodded. The ones that hurt the most don't leave physical signs. Thanks, Katsuki said quietly. You're right. When I was 9, my 9th birthday, as a matter of fact, was the first time I told my cousin to kill himself. I don't know how much of that was me or the influence, but I was there and didn't feel a bit bad about it until recently. I made a joke out of it. Do you know what I'd call a Gene joke, like you hanging from a noose? A good start. So do the world a favor, Deku. I fucking said that. 3.5 years, I told him shit like that at least once a week, usually twice, sometime even 3 or 4 times. I've done the math. Put them all together, and that's a solid year of me telling him to kill himself. I don't blame any of you for hating me. All I've got to say is take a number because I'm first in line for that. He moved to Tokyo shortly after his 12th birthday, and the last thing I said to him was to tell him to take a swan dive off the roof and pray for a quirk in his next life. He paused and took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a minute. Thank God your mom got a job offer from All Might. Thank God your quirk finally came in. Thank God you didn't listen to a little asshole like me. He opened his eyes and stared at Tenya Ida. Thank God you made a real friend who helped you get past the shit I dumped on you. Bakugo locked eyes with Uraraka. And thank God that you found someone who kicks ass and will defend you against the assholes of the world. He slumped against the wall and slid down it. That's it. You all were here for the rest or know it already. I'm an ass. I shouldn't have called you all extras or stupid-ass nicknames. I should have respected all of you. I'm sorry for that, but the one I really owe an apology to is Midoriya. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not yet. I don't deserve it. I owe you, Midoriya. 365 lives, 1 civilian saved for every time I said that to you. Don't even think about really forgiving me until I do that. Izuku looked up. I'll hold you to that. I had my own problems with bullies during grade school and middle school, but people can change, Ijiro said. It's a lot to process, dude, but after a manly declaration like that, I've got to cheer for you. I'll be here to keep you on the straight and narrow. Detonator is back, right? Katsuki shook his head. Not a damn chance. There's a villain out there using my old face and old name. Well, she can have them. I've got a new damn name, thanks to my aunt. From now on, You can call me. Chapter 8. Katsuki Bakugo. Origin Part 3. Peacekeeper. Peacekeeper, the atonement hero. My mom gave you that name? Izuku asked. Indirectly, Katsuki said with a smirk. Besides, detonator doesn't really work anymore. One day, I'm going to find peace with my past, and I'm going to do my best to keep it. I'll approve it, Midnight mumbled. The kitten was batting at one of her partial handcuff bracelets experimentally with a paw and waving a fluffy tail in the air with excitement. I'm just glad it doesn't include the words murder, death, or kill. He snorted. It's not as funny when you find yourself standing on the edge of that particular cliff, or falling off it, he thought to himself. Tenya Ida glanced at Izuku with a questioning glance on his face, and years of friendship let him understand some silent response. He stood, and Katsuki stood himself as the taller boy walked toward him with a serious expression on his face. Katsuki tried his best not to tense up. He was expecting a supersonic punch, not a bow. I would like to apologize as well. I have misjudged you, Bakugo. No, you didn't, Katsuki said, letting out a breath. You saw me for exactly what I was. I got damn lucky that I'm not that anymore. I'm free, but still figuring out who I am. So I guess it's good to meet you. I'm Katsuki Bakugo, for real this time. He bowed. Tenya Ida, I look forward to working with you as aspiring heroes. Well, give me an opening like that, Katsuki said. I've got a favor to ask of some of you, even if I haven't earned it. He glanced at Aizawa and asked, Is the lobby of the teacher's dorm okay? The man nodded and he turned back to Ida. One at a time, can I talk to you, Ijiro, Fumikage, Shoto Akatani, and Achiko Uraraka? Each of them nodded except Uraraka. She looked up sharply with surprise on her face. Me? Why me? He grinned. I'll explain, I promise. You can bring your boyfriend if you want. Today was a good day, and Himiko couldn't stop smiling. She got to dance and had birthday cake for the first time since she was 10. Her mom didn't get her a cake for her 11th birthday thanks to the blood. And well, she was on the streets before her 12th birthday. She didn't even realize she missed stuff like that, until a bunch of society's other monsters sang her happy birthday off-key in front of 3 different cakes, all with 17 lit candles. They went with 3 cakes because they didn't know if she liked vanilla, chocolate, or red velvet. While red velvet was her favorite, she had a huge piece of each one. It didn't matter that they were several days late. They'd rushed out as soon as she told them when her birthday was. They even bought her birthday cakes. It didn't even matter to her that they did it with stolen money. They took the time to do it right and get happy birthday, Himiko, written on them in frosting and everything. She leaned back, resting her hands on her slightly swollen belly, and took the time to stare at each one, etching their faces into her memory. Sure, they were all villains and might betray and murder each other at some point. Hell, they could all end up in Tartarus someday or get killed while resisting arrest, but for today she didn't care. She'd die for them or preferably kill for them. She stood up swiftly, clutching her stomach. Oh, Han. I warned you 3 pieces was too much for a skinny little thing like you, Magnus said with concern. Want me to come with you and hold your hair? Himiko pointed at her messy buns and ran for the bathroom. While she did have to go, she wasn't sick. That was just a convenient excuse so they wouldn't see the happy tears that ran down her face. She sat on the toilet and cried, whispering to herself, They really care about me. It took forever to get the sobbing under control. Long enough, in fact, that Spinner knocked on the door. Hey, Himiko, are you all right? We're getting kind of worried about you out here. I'm fine, she yelled cheerfully. Just ate too much and taking a monster shit. The fact that they cared enough to check on her was bringing the sobs back. Okay, more that I really needed to know, Spinner said. Holler if you need some stomach medicine or anything. Don't fall in either. I won't, she yelled, using laughter to hide the emotion in her voice. It took a few more minutes before she felt steady enough to stand back up and go out there and face them. She made her way to the sink and washed her hands, bending down to splash water on her face several times to remove the puffiness from her eyes. "Today's been like a dream come true," she whispered. Then she stood up straight and looked in the mirror with a gasp. Staring back at her was the face of Katsuki Bakugo, but he was covered with scars and most of his hair was missing, just tiny spiky tufts of blonde hair with thick expanses of burned skin. His red eyes glared at her and sent a shiver down her spine. "Happy birthday? Ha, what a joke. Your present was stolen from someone else, and they forgot to remove all the tags." She moved her right hand cautiously to her own face but didn't feel the harsh outline of his masculine jaw. Her other hand slowly reached toward the mirror. What is this?" His hands shot out of the mirror and grabbed the sides of her head, pulling her forward sharply until she slammed into the mirror, shattering it. The hands vanished when the mirror shattered, but the force threw her backwards and onto the floor, blood dripping from the cuts in her forehead. "One to grow on," he snarled from the other side of the cracks, and then turned and walked away into a shattered reflection of the world. While Achiko listened to Bakugo the entire time he told the class about his past with Izuku, she also watched his face. She couldn't help but think about when she was 8 years old while he talked. Achiko's 8th birthday had been one of the greatest days of her life. Sure, her birthday was only 2 days after Christmas, and with an extended family that only occasionally managed to sneak into the bottom of the middle class, most often all her gifts were combo gifts, but this year she got something that was hers and hers alone. She was going to be a big sister. Big sis Achiko. It was far too early to know if she'd have a little brother or sister, but she didn't care. She was going to be the best big sister ever. She'd teach them how to set up fishing lines in the creek behind their house. She'd read stories to them from the library. If anyone teased or tried to hurt her little bro or sis, she'd kick their ass. The house was small, of course, with only 2 bedrooms, so she knew that eventually she'd be sharing with her younger sibling. Slowly, a bit at a time, she moved all her meager possessions onto one side of her room. She even moved her futon closer to the window. She'd always been a bit scared of the oak tree outside at night. It reminded her of a skeleton during the fall and winter, but she was a big girl. If it scared her, surely it would scare a baby worse. She forced herself over the remaining weeks of winter to get to the point where she wasn't scared of some stupid old tree. Mom first noticed how lopsided her room was on Valentine's Day and asked about it. After Achiko explained in a bit of a ramble, Mom hugged her for a long time and then told her that the doctors said she would be having a baby sister. Mom was just starting to show. They were planning to name her Sakura. On White Day, Grandpa and Grandma came to visit, and Mom and Dad never came home from work. Grandpa didn't even try to scare her with his old, preserved hand. Oh, maybe her baby sister would be coming early. She was so excited. The next day, Dad came home alone and gathered up some clothes for both him and Mom. He talked quietly to Grandpa and Grandma in words too low for her to hear, and then left the bag by the door. He picked Achiko up in his big, strong arms and gently carried her to her room. She'd seen him feeling sad many times before, but Dad always tried to hide it between forced smiles and jokes. But this time he couldn't. Cuddlebug. Mom got hurt, so she's going to be in the hospital for a few days. She's okay, right? What can I do? What about the baby? Mom's going to be fine, he said, but his voice cracked. Just be good for your grandparents, okay? He pulled her into a hug. She couldn't see his face anymore, but she felt something wet drop onto the back of her shirt. I'm so sorry, Cuddlebug, but you're not going to be a big sister. Later, she found out that a giant sinkhole had opened on one of the job sites, toppling a crane into the office trailer where her mom was working. She lost the baby and the possibility of any more children. A few months later, they had to sell the house to replace the damaged crane when the insurance company declared it an act of God and refused to pay, since without it Uraraka Construction would be severely limited in the jobs they could handle. They moved into a tiny apartment, with her new bedroom less than half the size of her old one, but that was fine. She was used to only taking up half her old room and she set up her futon near the window. She might not have as much space as in the old house, but she made sure there was enough clean space on the floor for another futon. even if she didn't own a spare. She was sure if the spirit of her baby sister ever wanted to visit, Sakura could figure something out. It took nearly a year before smiles and laughter became common in the Uraraka family again. But Achiko never forgot the look on her father's face that day, or the sound of his voice. Katsuki sat at the table in the common area of the teacher's dorm with Eraserhead and Vlad King sitting opposite each other and leaving the other side of the table empty. He hadn't really specified an order, but he didn't expect Uraraka to be first. He especially didn't expect her to come without Midoriya. Curiosity killed the cat, she said, taking a seat. I guess I owe you an apology too, maybe? No more than Ida did, Katsuki said. I'm the one who's sorry. Not that I expect you to forgive me or anything. I haven't forgiven myself yet, but I'll earn it. Then, I don't understand why you wanted to talk to me, she admitted. We've never been close and haven't really dealt with each other much besides, dirty looks and insults? He asked with a grin. She nodded to concede the point. You're forgetting the colossal beatdown you gave me at the sports festival. She glanced at the two teachers. Look, I didn't know you were being mind-controlled. Now that I do dash. He held up his hand. I don't want an apology. I want a rematch. I really think I should say I'm sore. What? Before Bakugo can join Class B, Vlad King said, we have an entrance exam for him. 10 students, 5 from Class A and 5 from Class B versus 1. Ground Alpha this Saturday. He can win by catching 5 students in capture tape or managing to sneak past all of you and leaving through the exit on your side of the field. I'm picking the volunteers from my class, but for your class. I told him he could pick, Aizawa said. The only stipulation being that he'd have to ask, and they'd have to agree. He'd expected a far different roster. Ultra's off the table, Katsuki said. Ha, that's probably the first time I've used his hero name. It's kind of growing on me. She shook her head. I don't get it, why me? Because, he said, staring into her eyes. If I'm doing this, and I am doing this, I want to face the best. I know you won't hold back. You came in second during the sports festival. Reciprocator and Thermodynamic got third and fourth. Red Riot and Tsukuyumi both tied for fifth and are too honorable to go easy on me. You're strong. If I had to put my money on anyone in Class A to hit the top 10 other than Ultra, it would be you. You don't even like me, she yelled. And you don't like me, he said. But that's because we don't really know each other. Believe it or not, I do respect you though. Maybe you'll still hate me for the rest of my life. It's not like my personality came entirely from whatever the bastards put in my head. And I'll cop to that. If you don't want to do it, I understand. I'm sure Ishido won't mind a chance to kick my ass, but I think we'll both learn something. Even if it's just an answer to the question how far your punch can send me into the horizon. You're crazy, she said. Not anymore, he grinned. Got a cease and desist letter from Mei Hatsum and everything. Evidently, she's got the trademark and copyright on crazy at this school. Maybe I don't want to fight you, she said. It's just training, but I'm not going to pressure you. Like I said, it's a favor and an unearned one. She leaned forward. Are you really sorry for everything that you did? He closed his eyes and said, more than I hope you'll ever know. She saw in his face a faint echo of the pain she saw that day in her father's face 7 years ago. Regret for something that couldn't change, no matter how much you wished it could. I'll do it, she whispered. Shortly after Achiko left to go to the teacher's dorm, All Might stepped into the 1A dormitory. He found the class sitting on a new couch in quiet conversation of hushed voices. Young Tenya had his hand on Izuku's shoulder. On Izuku's other side, Mina Ishido sat between Izuku and Eijiro Kirishima, surprisingly holding Izuku's hand rather than her boyfriend's. All Might cleared his voice. Is everything all right, my young students? Young Shoto looked up. We were just told about Bakugo's history with Izuku, the boy said bluntly. All Might frowned. Ah, perhaps now is a bad time then. Perhaps young Izuku would finally open up about that situation. I'm okay, Izuku said, standing slowly. Did Principal Nizu? All Might nodded, and Izuku seemed to share an unspoken conversation with Tenya in the space of a moment. The boy ran interference as Izuku and All Might stepped outside and began walking across campus. All Might's shield armor was already in the shape of a black suit with a dark green tie, and Izuku's changed to match his. All Might carefully handed Izuku a raku urn inlaid with a stylized dragon, and the kanji for Hisashi Midoriya spelled out in jade. Nizu asked me to convey his condolences and apologize for the delay. He has great respect for your father, and wanted to make sure that the urn was the finest possible. All Might took a deep breath. He also ensured that it would be safe for the ashes to be kept in your home. Thank you, All Might, Izuku said, holding the urn close to his chest. You don't have to come along if you don't want to. I know it will be kind of uncomfortable. All Might smiled and placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Even if I didn't consider you and Inko my family, my boy, I would still want to be here out of respect for your father. They lapsed into silence as their steps led them closer to the new Midoriya home on UA's campus. Nizu spared no expense in the construction of the house, but it was also similar enough to the house in Tokyo that it felt comfortably like coming home. Hey Dad, he thought, look how far we've come. Bet you never imagined Mom would be living in what might as well be a mansion on UA's campus one day, or that your son would be All Might's successor. He looked down at the urn and gripped it a bit tighter. It was still a poor trade. The door to the house opened almost as soon as they set foot inside the gate. Sensors in the house let Inko know she had company, and she rushed to the door as soon as she saw Izuku and Toshi, but she faltered at their dress and expressions. Toshi preferred brighter colors, and unless it was his school uniform, Izuku rarely wore anything other than a short-sleeved t-shirt. What's wrong? She asked, a worried tone in her voice. Hi, Mom, Izuku said. Can we talk in the living room? There are some things you need to know from Attack on UA and Kamino. Inko's heart felt like it would hammer out of her chest. Izuku, baby, are you okay? You said you were fine on the phone. He is physically fine, All Might said. Please, Inko, we should be sitting down for this. She nodded quietly and opened the door, quickly leading them into the living room. They sat down on the large sectional, with Izuku on one side and All Might on the other. If there were any place safer in the entire world than the space Inko occupied in this moment in time, she couldn't imagine where it might be, but all she could feel was dread. Was Izuku or Toshi sick? Is that why they were dressed so somberly, as though going to a funeral? Please, tell me what this is about. Mom, Izuku said, I brought Dad home. He held up a beautiful urn, but she couldn't understand. Your father's ashes. They're already here, Izuku, she said, shaking her head. That monster, all for one, All Might said. His agents switched your husband's body. We didn't know. Inko's hand covered her mouth. Why? Why would he do something like that? The Nomu, Izuku said. They're brought back to life as monsters. He wanted to make Dad his servant, to kill us both and then All Might. Listen, Dad never stopped fighting all for one's control. He saved me again, Mom. He gave his life to save me. Inko buried her face in her hands and sobbed. When will that man leave us alone? Izuku pulled her into a hug. All Might placed a comforting hand on her trembling back. He's imprisoned now, and I'm pushing for his execution. Normally, I'm against such measures, but in this case, it must be done. There is more, though, if you can bear to hear it. Izuku chewed his lip as his mother shook. What else could he possibly have done? My master was a wonderful and brave woman named Nana Shimura, All Might said. She was the only one of the previous holders of One for All to marry. She and her husband had a son, but then All for One killed her husband. To protect her child, she gave him up for adoption. We never knew what became of her son until recently. All for One tracked him down, took Nana's grandson and warped him. The boy killed his entire family with his quirk. His name is Tenko Shimura, but he's now known as Tomura Shigaraki. That's horrible, Inko sobbed. That poor woman. But what? Although her conscious mind was destroyed in her last fight with All for One, Izuku said, Nana's body was still alive. He used her to create a child. Mom, Nana's spirit lives on in me. I can talk to her. And even though she never met her daughter in person, she still loves her and doesn't blame her. Nana's quirk was called Float. Her daughter's quirk came in late. So All for One didn't think she was of any use to him, so he had her left at an orphanage. This was all my fault. I'm the daughter of that psychopath. No, All Might yelled, and then continued softer. No, Inko, you're the daughter of the greatest hero I've ever known, Nana Shimura. It was merely a coincidence that your family got drawn into this. All for One didn't even know who you were that night 13 years ago and didn't care. Everything he's done since has been for petty revenge. The blame lies entirely with Sakataro Shigaraki. Inko's voice was small and quiet. How likely is he to be executed? Very, All Might said. The World Heroes Association is more impervious to outside influence than the HSPC, and they have jurisdiction. I'm going to lend my public support to the case. Considering my history of opposition to capital punishment, that will show how serious a threat he is. Nizu believes the odds are overwhelmingly in favor of it. I want to be there, Inko said, steel behind her voice now. I'll pull the switch or swing the axe myself. Not a chance in hell Ijiro would decline, although the look of disappointment on his face about what Katsuki admitted stung. While Katsuki didn't expect the meetings with Akatani and Ida to go as smoothly as they did, part of him suspected Akatani wanted a chance to kick his ass. Fumikage surprised him, though. I must decline, the boy said simply, without giving Katsuki a chance to even ask. That's fair, Katsuki said. Why, if you don't mind telling me? My quirk has recently undergone a rather drastic change, and you said you wished to face the best when you spoke to Achiko. At least for now, that isn't me. I will, if you permit it, be there to cheer you on. We have both confronted the darkness within recently and have much to learn. If I can help you in any other way, please let me know. Well, who would you pick as a replacement? Ashido, Kaminari, or Yaoyorozu? Fumikage tilted his head to the side. You want a challenge? Katsuki nodded. Tsuyu, Mashireo, or Hitoshi? You have chosen the members of our class with the strongest quirks, but the whole point of this is to prove that you can succeed without a quirk. Tsuyu is fast and acrobatic, but her fighting skills are incredible. The same is true for Mashireo, even without super strength. As for Hitoshi, he also fights quirkless, and facing him will prove how well you can keep yourself in check. Ha! Think any of them will go for it? Fumikage smirked. Tsuyu because she is kind, Mashireo because he is honorable, and Hitoshi because he would enjoy the chance to beat you. Ha! If you don't mind, send Shinso over. Fumikage nodded and left, and a few minutes later, Shinso walked into the room, sitting down across from Katsuki with a logical ruse grin on his face. Oh my, Christmas has come early this year. Your little reindeer game is the talk of the dorm. Guess someone said no? Yeah, Fumikage, Katsuki said, keeping his teeth clenched. What? Not bird brain? Po? Stark raven mad? He asked but caught the look of disappointment on Aizawa's face. Hey, I kind of liked being called insomniac. Most of them weren't even insulting. Except for Izuku's, of course. We can skip the whole meet and greet. Ijiro was second, and he told Mina everything. As you know, Mina tells everyone everything. The class already took an informal poll of who would be willing to take a shot at you and who wouldn't. Fumikage told us your next 3 picks, and we discussed it amongst ourselves. Mashireo and I aren't interested in fighting you. Sorry to waste your time, then, Katsuki grunted. I don't waste my time on lost causes, Shinso said with a smirk toward Aizawa. I'll help, just not in the way you think. Tsuyu already said she'd be your huckleberry, but Mashireo and I are going to help you prepare tomorrow. What? Katsuki asked in shock. Why? I'm a total bastard. His eyes narrowed in suspicion. Honestly, the look on your face right now is a big part of it. Shinso said. You're used to being loud and having an overwhelming, heroic emitter quirk. Now you're down at the bottom with us, and 10 against 1 makes you the underdog, and some of us have a soft spot for underdogs. Well, you've got a mutant and a guy with a weak, villainous emitter quirk willing to give you some pointers. We'll teach you how to be a sneaky bastard instead of a total one. Izuku didn't make it back to the dorm that night, sending a quick message to Mr. Aizawa that he was planning to stay with Mom for the evening. He also let his closest friends know where he would be. Izuku had a week to sort out his emotions somewhat. The revelations were more than Mom could handle in just a few hours. She was curled up on the couch under a blanket cradling the urn, so Izuku made his way into the kitchen. Whenever he'd been sad as a boy, which was honestly more often than he tried to admit back then, she'd make his favorite meal for him. Naturally, Katsudon couldn't fix everything, but still, it made him feel better. Not just the food, of course, but the love behind it. Katsudon was his favorite food, though. He gathered the ingredients and heated up the grill. After a few minutes of cooking, his mom stepped into the kitchen. Izuku, what are you doing? He smiled. Making us some okonomiyaki. He set a plate on the table. Veggies and shrimp with mayo, seaweed, and fish flakes. Oh, my baby, she cried, tears running down her cheeks. My favorite. I don't deserve you. This is all my fault. Your life's been so hard because of me. Izuku shook his head. It's not, Mom. You've been an amazing mother. The most amazing mother I could ever imagine. Come on and eat while it's hot, you'll feel better. It always worked when you made me Katsudon. She chuckled, but also sat down and started eating. You're right, she said. I do feel a little better. Perhaps I should go, All Might said from the door to the kitchen. Nonsense, Inko said. Your family. Thank you for coming with Izuku to tell me. Besides, Izuku chuckled, yours is almost ready. He got out one of the extra-large plates and set it beside Inko's. At All Might's look, Izuku grinned. I'm going to make mine right now. Izuku sat and joined them, and the three ate together in silence. As a testament to the appetites of Izuku and All Might, they both finished at roughly the same time as Inko. Anyone want another? All Might grinned. I could probably finish one more. A small one, Inko said. They're very good. Her hand went to her mouth. Whose ashes have I had all this time? I will deliver them to Nizu. He might be able to find out, All Might said. Whoever they were, I'm sure they felt honored to be in your care. All for One, the clone of him anyway, sat in the comfy chair in Tartarus watching a movie. Photographic memory. Not a particularly powerful quirk, but it did have uses. The sheer boredom of sitting blindly in a room would cause many people to go mad, but he had decades of entertainment he could relive at will. He mentally paused the film when the door opened and Jaiji stepped into the cell. Am I interrupting something? The guard asked. Of course not, All for One said affably. To what do I owe this fine conversation? The principal of UA High School would like to know whose ashes are in the urn of Hisashi Midoriya. Oh, I was wondering when they would ask. Am I offered any incentive for sharing such information? Perhaps a window? Or a stroll outside where I can feel the sunlight on my face and touch grass? All for One asked. No offer, but Nizu did say that knowing would probably hurt worse than not knowing. All for One's face broke into a grin. Ah, Nizu is such a delightful opponent. If his physical capabilities matched his mental faculties, I might just be the hero of this story. Tell him in respect for such an inspired move, I'll share. The urn contains the ashes of Inko Midoriya's half-brother and his entire family. What little that poor Tamura's quirk left behind. The bones were from the pig slaughtered to make the kakuni I ate the night before I killed Hisashi Midoriya. All right, Aizawa said, walking in front of a line of 10 students. For participating, you've got 10 points of extra credit for each of you that can be applied to any test next semester. If Bakugo doesn't catch you, that's an extra 5 points. If he doesn't make it through the exit and doesn't capture 5 people, that's another 5 points. Sir, Froppy said, do you want us to stop Bakugo, Ribbit? We want you to do your best, Vlad King said. Bakugo wants to be a hero. Villains will not hold back. We're not villains, though, Phantom Thief said. For this match you are, Aizawa said with a grin. Do whatever you can to take him down. He glanced at a couple of members of his class. Without killing or maiming, please, but other than that, don't hold back. You've each got a starting location, Vlad King said. But once the buzzer rings, you're free to do as you want. All right, sneaky bastard time, Katsuki said. Running into ground alpha and ducking into the shadows, he slid a visor over his eyes, reached into a pocket, and pulled out a handful of small spheres before tossing them into the air. Each one sprouted wings and a camera before taking off to map out the zone. After a few moments, 4 pictures popped up on the heads-up display built into the visor. Ha, nothing blown up yet, Hatsum. I'm feeling a little let down. So, let's see. Eeny, meeny, miny, you. He attached a grappling hook launcher to his left wrist and fired before he was yanked into the air and pulled himself up onto the rooftop. Be viewy quiet, he muttered to himself. I'm hunting wabbits.